Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of HLTV Confirmed, brought to you by Extrify. Yes, we've had to sell our souls. We need to feed our children and make sure we can keep the lights on here. Lukas is not cheap. It's a bag of rice a month, I think. So we've had to get some sponsors on board to deal with that. But anyway, it is Monday, the 2nd of November, and we're jumping into episode 13 of season 5. So lots of episodes here at HLTV Confirmed. Now today we're going to be looking into NiKo moving to G2. We all knew it was coming, but now it's official. Yanko stepping down from that of FaZe clan. We've got Vitality actually pulling off a 6-man roster. And of course we have our special guest of the day, Peacemaker. But before we get there, we have to jump in. We have to do a bit of a check of the globe with our regulars. First and foremost, Lukas, let's start with you. What's the weather like in Denmark today?
It's really raining outside. I don't.
What is that?
It's really wet.
Really rainy and really wet. So that's a good check-in from Denmark. Now, Striker, I have one for you. I've been doing my research. In the Czech Republic, which is where I believe you're from all of my research I've been doing in the last 5 minutes.
Yes.
Apparently, in 2019, your country ranked as the 7th safest in the world to live. How does that make you feel?
Pretty good. Not that surprising. I think it is a pretty safe country.
Okay, so yeah.
It's also like the #1 in beer consumption per person.
I
or
think by
alcohol
far
in general.
too.
I think they've got the most castles in Europe, I saw. So that we
Also makes sense, yeah.
We're learning about the Czech Republic here today. Now, Prof, we know where you're from. It's bloody Croatia. It's not usually nice
Everyone
weather there.
knows about Croatia.
It's usually nice weather there. But we're not going to ask about the weather.
Sunny, I can say.
We're going to check in about the real stuff. What's the Rona situation like there?
Also not great, but apparently we're not doing anything about it. So that's also cool. So it could be even worse in a couple of months. I don't know. Not like the gyms are still open, but I don't want to go because I feel like when I get into the rhythm, then they're going to close it again. Then I'm just going to be pissed off, and I'd rather not even try. You know?
Okay. So we've done the check-in, we've checked with everybody, but now we need to get to Peacemaker. And before we do, we have to run the bumper. So Lukas, play it. Let's sell our souls again. All right, we are back, and now we can introduce Peacemaker. Peacemaker, we were just talking to you before we got stuck into things, mate. And before we do the niceties, I want to get the drama. I want to be the TMZ of fucking Counter-Strike right now. What is going on with forZe? Do you want to fight them? Do we get in a ring? It's you and LMBT. Like, what's happening?
No, apparently I have to run to the forest. That's what I heard on Twitter.
To the forest?
No, yeah. No, but just kidding. Like, yeah, it was pretty chaotic last night. We very disappointing, as I even tweeted. Like, we were just practicing, and then I don't know. It's just common that we practice a lot of teams, and it's all like everybody's checking status to see if they have GOTV on and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's kind of like professional standards that we all expect everybody to follow in the scene. And then we're just playing, and I think it was like mid-half during the practice, and then one of my players actually saw that they had a GOTV on. I think it was Shush, and then he just said like, "Hey, they have a GOTV on. What do you want to do about it?" And I just said, "Yeah, like I'm coaching right now, so I can't tell them to shut it down. Can you message them?" And then that's how everything started. But like at first place, when the situation happened, I was just like, well, maybe they actually forgot about it. But then when they offered to send the demo, then I was just like, wait. So it kind of felt for me that it was kind of like a pre-made deal that they had. That like if they asked, then we're just gonna offer them to send the demo, and it's all right. And when that happened, I was kind of questioning myself, and I even asked my teammates like, should we do something about it? Should we just keep quiet? And then I just figured that maybe some other teams have been practicing with them and probably didn't even knew they were recording stuff or having a GOTV on. And then yeah, I just figured that it would be the right move to basically tweet about it and do what I did. Yeah, and then I don't know, I was just very disappointed with the reasoning behind it, and it's just like it's kind of like I don't believe in fairy tales, and I don't believe that a coach like LMBT and those players, it's like they have been around for such a long time, and they know that there's a GOTV on their server. And after that, we even saw tweets from Yanko and other coaches saying that they have been playing with them, and apparently it's not a one-time thing. It has been happening for some time, which surprises me that nobody spoke about it or anything. Like not even privately. Like I haven't heard anything between the teams or anything. So and then yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And then I just feel like if you're acting that way and nobody says anything, and you think that it's fine and it's fair just because you can just send the demo, then yeah, there's a problem itself with just the fact that you know there's a GOTV for some time now and you don't do anything about it. So
Sure. So
Well,
I was gonna jump in, Striker, and
Well, yeah, just let's talk about why it's a problem, though, like in the first place, because obviously a lot of people might not quite understand. Because I think, first of all, it's quite understandable to want to record your practice demos just for, like preparation purposes, review and stuff like that, figuring out what your mistakes are and things like that. But then there's the other side of the coin where you can also kind of scout your opponents based on that. When you have a GOTV available, you can like literally see what every single move that the opponent is doing. You can use those demos as additional preparation in case you meet that team, in some official games later. So basically, that's the problem here.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't mind if we could also dig in a little bit, Peacemaker, into other etiquette, I suppose. Like when you're looking for a scrim, like, or when you're in a prac session, like what other forms of etiquette are there? Because obviously the GOTV one, it's been common sense for basically the entire time people have been playing professional Counter-Strike, right? It's a weird one that it's even cropped up again. But are there other things these days that there is just general scrim etiquette?
Can I just jump in with one thing with that, because I reached out to hear like forZe's side of the story,
Sure.
just to see. I'm not saying this is like 100% the facts, but what I heard was that the thing with the GOTV record, it happened like it's automatically on when you do like a hard reset of the server, which is like on the hosting side, right? Because it's like a Seacrest or whatever, right? Hosting company. So allegedly that happened before this and they didn't check, so that's why it was on, right? And then maybe they didn't really explain it well, and then everything, like, I understand completely from Peacemakers, from what we saw in the logs, it was like, what the fuck? But I guess this was like sending the demo was like their way of saying like, okay, it's recorded, but we'll send it to you after, so it's like it's the same for both teams, right? I'm not sure like if that's real or not, but that's just what I got from their side. So there is a possibility that it happened not on purpose, right?
Yeah, of course. I completely agree, and like I want to try to believe that they are not acting in bad faith. Like it just surprised me even more when I heard from other people, right? That this happened, and it's kind of like when it happens once, and you know there is a problem and it could happen again. It's kind of like something that I feel like you kind of have on your checklist before you go on a practice. That okay, we need to check if there's a GOTV on, because if there is, the other team might get pissed and stuff like that. So why not just take a look on it before you scream if it has been something that has happened for a while. And that's what I maybe they forgot about it, and it's whatever. Like as I said, I don't want to discredit their success or anything, but it was kind of weird the way they responded to it and all of that. I just hope they are not making use of it. And yeah, also the Flashpoint fact that we're playing against them in a couple weeks from now, and then they are using those practices. But answering you, Shed, like there's like standards about not being on time, which is actually something that we have been failing quite a lot. But it's not only us. Like I feel like players in general, like they go for a quick cigarette or something like that right before they scrim, and then usually the scrim starts 5 to 10 minutes late anyway. But it's not a major issue as long as like you do things fast and you don't keep pausing the game too much and everything goes according to the plan. I would say that a scrim takes like up until like 50 minutes if everything goes according to the plan, 55 minutes. And if you start like 10 minutes late, then it gets really, really tight. But besides that, just taking several amount of pauses, like especially the coaches, if you pause too much, because like in LAN, they have those 30 seconds, but when you're screaming, it's not like anyone respects that rule. So the coaches do need to take pauses, including myself. Like I just take a pause, and it's not like I'm checking the clock to see if it's been more than 30 seconds. I just speak as much as I want, and then sometimes it's 1 minute, sometimes it's 15 seconds, and then those things I think that is kind of like the things that maybe annoys people. But besides that, just the GOTV thing and recording practices in general.
I got one more here because back when I was still playing, I think there was the Facebook group that we were using to find scrims, and then it was starting to get to the point in that Facebook group where people stopped putting the maps they wanted to scrim. People still hiding the maps they want to play and then it's private discussion, or are people or you're still even using the same system? Like, what's going on with finding scrims these days?
It's the same way. I feel like some teams they just post the maps, but I feel like when most of the teams are kind of hiding the maps and just discussing that privately because like there's so many events happening. Us, for example, what we do is like I always discuss the maps privately, simply because of the fact that I don't want maybe the coach of the other team who is very active on Facebook checking which maps we have been practicing. I mean, not gonna lie that I do that myself. Like I'm constantly checking to see if I can find any kind of information to help my team. Even on the like, there's so many tools nowadays. Like there's also a website that people are using nowadays. I don't know if you guys know. It's prac.com. That people basically they go to this website and then it just makes it easier. You just post the times you need and also the maps. You can select each maps you do, and then people just post the times there, and then it's very easy to book. You don't even need the contact. It's just sending an offer, and then if the team accepts, then it's randomly selected a server, and then you just have to connect, basically. So it's pretty
easy.
Yeah,
pretty
easy.
All right. Well, now that we've got all the drama out of the way and we've done our TMZ news reporting, we can get stuck into the real deal. Now, we were actually just discussing with you before we went live, like where you're currently situated and what's going on. Do you want to give the viewers at home a little bit of an insight with that?
Yeah, sure. We have been bootcamping in Copenhagen for the past 2 weeks, I would say, like 14 days. I'm from Portugal and Brazil, and Brazil as well, but I'm currently living in Portugal, and my team everybody's from Denmark nowadays. And we just figured that due to having a new roster, and I always believe that it's very nice to start things off with a bootcamp to get used to each other and meeting in person and just building a good team chemistry in general. And then during COVID times, it was pretty rough. Like we thought about different plans, and then we always think about trying to do something else, like doing a bootcamp somewhere else where we can have fun, maybe a more touristic place. But with the situation we're living in nowadays, we just figured that Copenhagen is also pretty safe nowadays. I think the cases are pretty under control. And then everybody's from here, so I just figured it would be safer for everyone to just bootcamp here, and then I would just have to travel and take the risk, kind of. But so far it has been really good, and that's what we're doing so far. And then now the players went back home for a few days before Flashpoint starts. We will continue to scream online, and then basically decided to stay here to Flashpoint.
Yeah, probably the safest move, all things considered, right now.
Yeah.
So I guess if we reflect on this year for you and Mad Lions, it's been a lot of ups and downs. You guys obviously won Flashpoint Season 1 over MIBR, but that feels like it was a lifetime ago because of all the Counter-Strike we've had played. You've had some roster changes in recent times. There's obviously no longer AcilioN on the team. bubzkji's gone. I'm trying to think, where's the best starting point for this? After you guys won Flashpoint, what happened there that kind of led to the crumbling of all the pieces that we've seen in recent times?
Yeah, after Flashpoint, I mean, obviously it was very good that we won Flashpoint, but it's not like we sat with the feeling that our team was in the right path and everything was perfect and that we were ready to compete against the best teams and all that. So definitely a lot of work still to do, and not taking any credit on Flashpoint or any of the teams there, but we also didn't have really high level of competition there. So I tried to keep the players on check about it, that they understand that it was great, but that it was great, but that we would face a lot harder opposition moving forward. And then I think the situation with us definitely like it's up and downs, and safe to say that like our goal for this year was to be a stable top 15, top 10 team by the end of the year, and we're nowhere near that right now. But definitely due to all the roster changes that happened during the year and all the situation with COVID and online and all of that. But one thing that I'm pretty happy about is that like we have been competing good events, so that's still a positive thing, that we're qualifying for the good tournaments and we're having the chance to play among the best teams, to gain experience and to maybe upset teams and maybe have a good run and stuff. And right after Flashpoint, we actually did. Like I think we made it to the playoffs in Blast, and we had a couple, I would say decent results considering all the factors. But then I guess leading into the first roster change that we had, which was bubzkji, I think it was I mean, bubzkji is a really talented guy, He's really, really smart, and he has a very strong personality when in terms of like the way he thinks about the game, and he requires a lot of space in order to feel comfortable. And but he's a really good player. But I think with bubzkji was more like, I think it was a mixture of him being kind of unhappy about competing Flashpoint. I don't feel like he was happy about it at all. Like I feel like he really wanted to compete. And that's kind of like the scenario with most of the players. You just want to compete the best tournaments in the world, and if that means competing an event with the worst teams, then some players take it easy, some players don't. And I don't feel like bubzkji was really happy about it. And then bubzkji was that was also like some other personal things that I want to go into because it's personal, like directly with him. But I think it was a mix of that, and plus him being approached by different teams and maybe getting higher offers and all of that. And then I think there was rumors about Astralis wanting him back then. And once he heard that, and I cannot judge the kid, because like if I was in his shoes and then I hear that Astralis wanted to maybe get me for the future, that's what I told him, like, hey dude, if that's the case and if you're 100% sure that that's an opportunity, then that's what you really want, I cannot judge you. And I think there was a mix of that, him trying to approach a new team, which was Astralis, which ended up happening, and that was basically it. He just wanted to move on to Astralis because he felt like he could learn a lot in that project, and that's pretty much what happened.
I have something from what you were talking about with him saying, well, not him saying, but you saying that he would have preferred to have played in a different tournament, right? Because while Flashpoint was on, you mentioned the teams there. We had MIBR, the other team in the final with you guys. Harvey was in the mix. There was a lot of, let's say, newer rosters to that level of spotlight as far as Counter-Strike is concerned. You guys joined Mad Lions. It was a tail end of last year, right? It was towards the end of so. At that time, was it made aware that this team was being picked up for Flashpoint as the league, or was that not known at the time?
No, it was known at the time. As far as I remember, like we got picked up in January, and then it was already part of the deal that we would compete in Flashpoint. And but the only thing is that when I don't know exactly what happened, but when we heard about Flashpoint, and the idea that was sold to us was that it would be a great event with a lot of top teams and all of that, and I think that was actually their plan. I don't know exactly what happened in with the business, like if it was complications or what happened between ESL and Flashpoint and all those stuff. I'm not completely sure, but what we heard in the first place is that a lot of the top teams would be participating, and then in the end, that wasn't the case. So that definitely caused some kind of a frustration, not only on us, to be honest, but I heard from other teams as well. Like nobody wants to be competing an event for 1 month or 1 month and a half with only 2 or 3 top teams, and the rest is kind of like a roster. It's like a mixed teams or teams that are not gonna continue for after the event and that kind of stuff. So I think that was some kind of a frustration, which I don't know if it's necessarily Flashpoint's fault, but that led into that tournament not being as special as it could. Yeah, prestigious. That's the word. Prestigious as it could. So yeah.
Okay. So then we move forward to looking at some of the players you started picking up from there, and the Innocent pickup was kind of a strange one. I think we were talking about it here on the show a couple of times, and we're like, what the fuck? Like we get that we're speaking probably a little bit of English for your sake anyway. But I remember either I read an interview, you did an interview, maybe you were on broadcast with us. I forget. Like I know that I had seen something in the past where you had mentioned that with the team they speak in Danish, and then when you have the timeouts, everybody speaks in English. Was that the case? Did I hear? Was that right?
Yeah, that's right. Like the in-game, everybody's communicating in Danish, and I think I've been coaching Danish teams for 1 year and a half now, or almost 2 years since the heroic times. So it's not like I know exactly everything they're saying, but I know all the callouts, and I have a very good idea of everything that's being communicated. So in that sense, it's not 100% optimal, but I can pick up a lot of things nowadays. But yeah, that's the case.
Was there any issues though when Innocent came in? Because obviously everybody would have. We all know the Danes are fantastic at English. So, but were there any like teething issues with the language barrier then?
Oh really? Like actually, surprisingly, Innocent's English is very good for, I would say, Polish standards. Like the Polish people that I know.
Sure.
Like his English is really good. So there was no issues with English at all. The thing with Innocent is it's very unfortunate because like. There wasn't, like, being completely transparent with you guys, there wasn't really like a reasoning behind removing him other than the team feeling like we're missing communicate, like a very detailed communication was missing because of the transition. And then the team just felt like, hey, if we ever get the opportunity to go back to Danish and the opportunity happen, then we should just do it because it will be a lot easier for us and the team chemistry and all of that. So, and then I cannot go against that, even though it would, as you said, like it would help me a lot to go full English and all of that. But the team goes above, and if they want that, and I just have to deal with it, then it's no problem for me as well. But just being honest with you about the Innocent as well, all the situation unfolded. It was just that we tried a lot of options during the player break before we actually got into Innocent, and he knows that is not a secret. Like there's nothing wrong with him. It's just we tried a lot of the Danish options. Many of them didn't even want to consider us or talk to us, or they were asking for crazy amount of money, salary-wise, compensation, and that kind of stuff, which wasn't really aligned with what we were willing to offer. And apart from that, then we tried the Lecro situation, which is actually true. Like we spent a lot of time with Lecro, and we were actually really close of signing him. But then, kind of like last minute, he chose to go to North. And I would say that we spent close to 3 weeks on the negotiation with Lecro,
Wow.
which wasn't efficient because like usually you want to have a lot of backup plans and be talking to multiple people at the same time. But we really believed that we could make it happen, and then in the end, that was during the player break, right? So we kind of spent 3 weeks from the player break, considering that we would move on with Lecro, and then you might ask me like, yeah, but Lecro is a Swedish guy, how it would be in the communication thing, but Lecro was actually willing to learn Danish, and he was willing to learn Danish, and he understands a few words. It's not like it's completely different, the languages, but he was willing to take classes or whatever needed in order to communicate in Danish. So it was just perfect for us. And then last minute, that situation happened, and then we're just kind of like desperate, trying to approach different people and talking to different people. And then it came down to the roster lock of Cologne. That was really, really tight. I think we had like 5 days or something to figure out a new player, and then we just figured that the Innocent was one of our options, and then that we made it happen. And I don't think it was necessarily bad. I think we actually delivered some decent results with him. We just didn't have time to develop even a map pool or like actually build a proper team with him, basically.
Sure. Prof or Strike, you guys got anything here before we dip into more of the recent stuff?
I want to just say that it's amazing that North actually like beat someone, not maybe on the server, but to a player. That is actually like something we didn't hear about for some time. This is like a big win for the org. So congratulations on like that snatch, I guess.
I was going to ask about how, I guess, the public perception of Madlands was for a long time that, you know, it was a team that had like a massively bright future, you know, that was supposed to be the next big team from Denmark. So, but I'm not saying that it wasn't grounded. Obviously, everybody saw the potential and stuff like that, but you never did win like a big event, or you never showed that you had what it takes to be like a top 5 team. It was just like you were that top 10 team that could, you know, on a good day take down some of the better teams, but didn't really do it consistently. It really didn't really show that you can do that consistently, you know? So did that kind of a pressure from the community have its toll or take its toll on the team?
I think yes, especially before Flashpoint. I think that when situation with Honden, then there was a lot of pressure on us for sure. But then after Flashpoint, after we won Flashpoint with AcilioN, then I don't feel like there was the pressure took a toll on us or anything like that. I think you're right that when you say what I said, like it's not like we accomplished the results we all wanted and that I expected and we all expected in the team. I think the situations with the roster changes is the thing that affected us the most, because like first we lose bubzkji, which was a very important player, like a very important piece to the team. And I think we kind of, at least myself, like I can speak for myself, like I kind of underestimated the importance that bubzkji had in the team and the space that he created for the team back then. I could definitely see that he was very talented and all of that, but once we lost him and then we were figuring out like how to play without him and the space that he created, then actually we realized that how important that was. So yeah, a lot of credit to him about that. And then I think the roster changes are the thing that affected us the most. Losing bubzkji and then constantly changing in-game leaders. And then the thing about changing in-game leaders is that it's not like you change one player and then you just say like, hey, this is your spots, and these are our strats, and this is the system how it works. Let's get to practice, and then it takes some time. But yeah, when you change an in-game leader, it's basically a whole new system that needs to be developed. The map pool changes because suddenly the in-game leader that's coming, he doesn't like to play a map that we were really good at before. And then how do we force this new guy to get comfortable on a map that he's not necessarily really comfortable? And then we have to kind of like combine both systems we had before. And usually that doesn't work that well because I actually feel like the in-game leader needs to have a stronger voice and how he wants to play and needs to be 100% comfortable in order to deliver and to make sure that the players are also believe on him as an IGL. So that's definitely I think it's the most important factor of why. Oh, sorry, did my camera go out?
I think may have lagged out. But might
Okay,
come
let
back.
me just plug it in again.
Lucas, Mr. Producer Man, good. Now you got to tell us if there's a problem. Do we have problems? Okay. Well, these problems, are they easy to fix?
Yes.
Let me just
Okay.
unplug this.
Well, that's all right. We can fix the problems quite easy. We're going to throw to another bumper soon anyway, and we'll try and fix it in that time. So we'll just continue forward right now. Did you get the answer you were looking for there, Striker?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So before we get to that bumper, I want to ask a couple more questions, and then we'll talk about HLTV and refresh, and then we'll throw to the next bumper, and we'll fix the webcam issue. Shouldn't be too many dramas. Just quickly, the Lekro decision, or the Lekro having him as a player, obviously you guys were keeping AcilioN at that point, right? But was there any thought that maybe if Lekro was to come in, that he could take over in-game leading, or was he just going to be a fragger within the team?
Oh, like definitely the idea was that he would be that he would probably be the in-game leader. Like it was kind of it was very difficult. Like at first place we would try to stick with AcilioN as a in-game leader and see how it goes. But and then with Lekro being kind of like the second voice, and then Lekro at first place he said that he was willing to do anything role-wise, and then we actually obviously we thought that in the future, if anything happens and we need like a second voice in the team, or if anything happens and he's good at Danish and all that, then why not just give the guy a try? Like he has done it for NIP, and we knew that he definitely is not like he would be completely out of his comfortable zone. So yeah.
Okay, and then I guess we can move forward because obviously you guys replaced AcilioN with HLTV to take over
But
the in-game
Sponge
leadership.
being very critical of AcilioN
Now-
and that signing and him in general.
I wanna just preface that a little bit more. I was critical because AcilioN, in my mind, came into the team to be an upgrade of firepower over Hunden. And statistically speaking, Peacemaker, he was not a firepower upgrade over Hunden, really.
Yeah.
Maybe like a little bit. What was holding him back from being able to frag?
Yeah, I think with AcilioN it was, I don't know, man. To be honest, there's multiple things, but
Yeah.
with AcilioN it was a combination of the way that I think that the way that he wanted to play, and that's something with AcilioN that like he's a very structured in-game leader who wants things to be like in the right place at the right time, and everything needs to be kind of like as he wants in order for him to feel 100% comfortable on calling and all of that, which is not necessarily bad. Like I just think that one of the things that would happen in the team is that the players, they like to have freedom and they like to be able to commit mistakes here and there and do things, and that's something that took a toll on everyone in the team. Kind of that when we committed mistakes, then we were like reviewing, and AcilioN really wanted things to be fixed, and he was harsh when needed, which I don't think is bad, but I think taking care of the team and making sure that everything was in the right place and everything was as he wanted, I think that took a toll on him because he spent a lot of time trying to figure out team stuff instead of focusing on his performance. So that's one of the reasons. And besides that, I just feel like I think AcilioN, when he joined the team, he actually delivered like decently in Flashpoint. I think he was okay. It's not like he underperformed or anything. Like there in Flashpoint, we actually felt that the firepower that we all expected from in terms of increasing between Hunden and him actually was there. But after that, I feel like all the team stuff and all the things with the roster change with bubzkji and all of that, I think that definitely affected him on an individual level. And that's basically it. Like I don't want to criticize him too much.
Sure.
I think it's the team the situation with the team affected him. And besides that, like the only thing is that I don't know if AcilioN is ready yet to compete among like against the best teams in the world. And there's no offense to him. It's just like when we started playing against higher opposition, then he wasn't delivering as good as I believe he can. Yeah, there's multiple factors, and I hope that he can now when he's back into Flames. I hope that he can build the system that he wants, and then get more experience competing against the best teams, and maybe improve his individual level a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, so was a part of getting a new in-game leader coming in here, HLTV, with Refresh? It was a part of that kind of like to give a breath of fresh air to the whole team. It's like now it's with 2 new players. It's almost not a new project, but it gives you a chance to actually have a new direction and a new game plan and almost start from scratch in a lot of ways. Is that kind of the way this has been taken?
Yeah, that's definitely the way it's been taken. Like we, as I told you, like we wanted to go back to Danish, and then when there's not many in-game leaders out there in Denmark where we felt that was what we needed and what the team wanted. So in terms of the reasoning behind getting HLTV and Refresh was first that we really wanted Refresh in the first place, even before when all the situation with bubzkji started happening. Like we really wanted Refresh, and back then Refresh wasn't really interested. Like he had his concerns and wasn't really up to joining us. And then when basically the situation with Refresh happened and we figured out that we could get him, then we're like, okay, getting Refresh definitely really good. And then I think that Hoy Hoy worked with HLTV before and told me a lot of good things about him. And then also when we spoke with Refresh, he also said a lot of good things about HLTV as an IGL and how he controls the team and how he wants to play and all of that. And I think the way that HLTV wants to play and the way he thinks about CS, so far at least, it's very aligned to the way that I want to play as well. But it's very aligned more with like modern CS and the way the teams are playing nowadays. Not necessarily with that much structure, like kind of like combining structure with the very loose style and giving people freedom to commit mistakes and to do plays and that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's something that we lacked. We had a player that did that, which is bubzkji, but the rest of the team was kind of like stuck in between, like committing a mistake and trying to do things or not. And right now, I feel like our team, we have the players 100% comfortable to do moves and to commit mistakes and to try to take risks and all of that. And I think that's very aligned to how the best teams in the world are playing all this.
Okay, so looking at the team now, for those people playing at home, obviously Refresh and HLTV have come in to join Acor, Roy, and Shush. Now, we were talking about it on the show and trying to work out what would happen with player changes. Now, we didn't dive into the new roster that you guys have put forward too much, but is Refresh kind of doing the job of bubzkji now? Is that how that's started, or is Shush taking more space? Like, what's going on with the players and the roles?
Wait, can you guys see me now?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah,
Yep.
I think
Okay.
so. We think
Okay,
we're good.
perfect.
Yeah, we
Let
can
me just,
see you as well. There we go.
All right. Yeah, I just fixed my camera. Sorry.
Wonderful.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Just now with the team and the makeup of the players. So you guys have played, let me just have a look here, 5 officials so far, 5 maps of Counter-Strike. Refresh is the highest rated player. Is he taking bubzkji's spots, or is it like Shush is taking more room? Like what's going on with the makeup of the players and the roles?
Yeah,
Obviously, Acor's still opening.
Yeah, Acor's still opening and doing his thing. Refresh took all bubzkji roles, and it's something that Refresh feels really comfortable on doing. And that's why we really wanted him. Like Refresh is not as aggressive as bubzkji, I would say. Like taking the risk that bubzkji takes, because sometimes bubzkji would just do stuff that is like works really well, but also can lose you rounds, and that was something that sometimes we had issues with. And Refresh is more like the player that we create moves for him, and then he is 100% comfortable in doing them. But everything is kind of like pre-planned, and then we make sure that he has all the space and all the room he wants. But everything is kind of like discussed before. It's not like he's doing something completely random that will completely affect the outcome of the round. So yeah, then HLTV in game leading and in map control and controlling the pieces, and yeah, Refresh just doing most of bubzkji roles.
All right, easy. Boys, you got any questions before we wrap this up, move to the recent news?
No, I think we actually talked a lot about Mad Lions, which is surprising. It's a team we kind of forget about a lot, but there's a lot to process. I think there's still a lot probably to come out about the team in the future, about Hunden and all of that situation. But Some of that will probably remain for the future, I guess.
I guess we got a little while until we have to worry about those bits and pieces. We got it in there within 35 minutes, bits and pieces. Nice. All right, Lukas, throw to the bumper. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back. You guys must be enjoying the ads. You must be loving them. They must be really, really good. You guys are big fans of the show, and thus you're going to be big fans of the ads. Right? Yes, that's the answer. Anyway, let's get stuck into the recent news. Now, some big shit has happened in a week. Who would have thought? Counter-Strike doesn't stop. Now, where should we start? Let's start with JaCkz exiting FaZe. Now, Striker, did you read his statement?
I don't honestly remember exactly what it said, but the move kind of made sense to me.
Now, why do you? Well, let's quickly surmise it for people at home. So JaCkz was part of the FaZe roster. NiKo went to G2, and JaCkz with that move basically stepped down. Now, why do you think that made sense, Striker? What about that did you think was a good decision?
Just because it was pretty clear that. I'm not saying that it was a package deal, but obviously NiKo was a big part of why YNK was on that team and why those two worked together, obviously as the IGL and the coach. So for them to both leave at the same time just makes sense to me. Bianco is probably not that committed into the team anymore, and obviously after the results that they've had recently, I think it's fair to say that he would want to sell, or fair to assume that he would want to try something else in the future. So everything together about this just makes sense to me.
So, like, looking at this here, the decision coming on through from JaCkz to step down, do you think that speaks obviously to his relationship with NiKo, but to some of the problems that NiKo highlighted in that interview with HLTV.org?
This for Striker?
Oh, for anybody. Fucking, I've got some noise going on outside right now. I can't actually hear anything.
I'll say that I think, like, it would be nice if JaCkz stayed on, just to see like what kind of impact he would have with NiKo not being there. And from like my like personal point of view, just I'd like to see that so I can like compare what is going on, right? But I understand completely why he would have left, because if you look at the almost 2 years that he spent in FaZe, it started with the Neo, actually a Dren first, then Neo, right? That was the order, as stand-ins for almost a year, trying to like have Neo as the in-game leader, which didn't work. So he was just like playing for some time, then like constantly searching for like the solution, which they didn't get. They got coldzera, which we all know wasn't the solution to be the in-game leader, right? It was just a cool signing, but it wasn't the solution to their problems. And then in Brokey, they actually got a pretty good offer that actually fits their system, I think, extremely well for free, which is kind of where they lucked out, I think. But yeah, they just never completed that thing. And for JaCkz to leave, I completely understand it, just to try something new and just have a fresh start somewhere. Because again, being in this situation where now you have to replace NiKo with who and how, that is just probably going to be another nightmare or a couple of months of just like going through people and searching for a fit, right?
Well, it'd be like starting again, right? Obviously, they haven't had an in-game leader for so long, and they've been doing their best to kind of keep the wheels on. And with all the rumors about players going elsewhere, or the possibility for players to be going elsewhere, I can see why he would have done it. Now, Peacemaker, do you think JaCkz goes on to coach another team? And if so, do you think there are any names out there that could be waiting for him?
Yeah, just real quick about JaCkz. I was actually like I agree with you guys that I think that it makes sense that he left and all of that, but I actually wanted to see JaCkz maybe continue for some more time. And like it's safe to say that like I feel like FaZe never really had like at least while JaCkz was there, didn't have like a proper in-game leader that would take care of the team and control everything. Like a guy like Kerrigan, for example, would come in and probably have a system built and around him. Then I actually wanted to see if JaCkz could develop the team together with a real in-game leader. Not taking any credit out of NiKo, but like we can see even in the interview that it's not like he was really happy with it or anything like that. So yeah, but moving on, like I definitely think that JaCkz definitely has his strengths. Like there's no question into that. Like if he coached the MIBR and then he coached FaZe now, and FaZe has been competing on a high level for quite some time, up and downs, but still there. And I think that moving forward, I don't know. Like it's kind of difficult right now. Like I could actually see him moving to a different project like the Cloud9s of the world, but now they have Kassad and stuff. I don't know. It would have to be something that makes a lot of sense and that where he would have the space that I feel like he likes in order to control the team and all of that. Like we saw back in the days with the MIBR, where he even gave, I think, an interview saying that the team wasn't really open to his ideas or something like that. So I think moving forward, if he decides to continue to coach, it would have to be for someone who is really open-minded to listen to him. I think definitely he has a really good mind for the game. Like back in the days when he was an analyst, I loved hearing his thoughts about the game and all of that. So definitely a really smart guy. And yeah, but I don't really know like if there's any.
There's one team that's missing a coach right now, which is mouz Sports. That would make like the most sense, I guess, at this point, just because it's a European roster, obviously, like English speaking and stuff like that. That's the team that he would. That's the most obvious one, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the best fit necessarily. It's just an option for sure.
That's a good point. I think that when you look at especially with what Peacemaker was saying, when you look back at MIBR not having a lot of control of the team, then you look at FaZe. This is from what I was reading between the lines with the interview with NiKo, is that it didn't seem like FaZe wanted to splash around the cash or even lost out on certain deals, right? So with that in mind, he had two issues in back-to-back teams, both hamstringing them from getting necessarily the players they needed. mouz Sports at this point, with that team as it is, are they like, I guess they're still in their infancy with bemuz in the roster, and you already have a strong in-game leader in Kerrigan, so it could be one where he could slot in quite nicely. But I guess that's going to be up to him. So I obviously used to speak with JaCkz all the time. It's not something that we do anymore, so I don't actually know what his plans are going to be looking about. But I wouldn't mind segueing this conversation, Striker, into the NiKo interview, right? Yeah. So you were saying before that there are a lot of takeaways from that hadn't been expressed. Are there a couple of those that you wouldn't mind like giving us, summarizing for the audio listeners?
I mean, just the first of all, just the pressure that was on him from the community was very clear that he wanted to get off his chest and get away from, with this move to G2, just because obviously there's been a lot of criticism about FaZe and him being the IGL and him being like the face of the team. And I feel like a lot of people were, I'm not saying that it's unfair. Obviously the results spoke for themselves. They didn't really do what they wanted, but at the same time, they, like you were saying, I think they were getting hamstrung a lot with the players that they were able to get. And this is something that I said on Twitter as well, which is that it's pretty clear from the latest 3 signings that FaZe just didn't want to spend any more money on big buyouts and on the players that FaZe actually needed to become a better team that they were. Like, considering who they got, looking at Brokey, that's entirely unproven at the time. He actually worked out really well for the player that he was, coming from FPL, entirely unproven on a team level, especially at this level that FaZe are in. And he ended up being a really good addition. Obviously, bemuz not so much, but at the same time, he was also put in roles that didn't really fit him. You can also put that to the team and, put like NiKo at blame, for not moving the pieces around to accommodate him a little bit better. But you have to take into consideration how much time they had, whether they even considered bemuz to be a viable option for the future, like a long-term option. And then there's the signing that I think was simply a signing that they had to take just because he was like the best firepower option that was actually available for free and not somebody who you had to pay a lot for. And it's just like, you just can't get good IGLs for free at this point. Like, every good IGL that is out there is signed to a team. And even Alex, who isn't necessarily with a team because he was on the bench for Vitality, his buyout was clearly massive, and that didn't work out, probably because of the money that was tied into it. So I feel like NiKo is getting a lot of flack, and he was feeling it a lot in FaZe, and it is a big part of the reason why he left and why he joined G2.
Yeah, I think if we take a look at this as a whole, I think we might have some issues. Are there audio? There might be some audio issues right now, Lucas.
Yeah, you're fine with us. Like we can hear you just fine.
Striker who just messed up. Just
Okay.
keep it going.
All right. I thought never mind. I was reading Twitch chat for once. You should never do that, guys. I've learnt my lesson. I've been baited into it. We were talking about FaZe in this interview. So I wouldn't mind digging more into the move of NiKo to G2 as well, and getting your take on this, Peacemaker, because we've discussed it on the show before, and I think that we assumed that it was AmaNEk who was going to be removed, and that was who NiKo was going to be replacing. But the more that you think about it, the more that you take a look at the team as a whole, just from a role and player perspective, it might make more sense for NiKo to be slotting into more of like JaCkz's type positions. What do you take on this?
They did actually say,
They did?
like Malik had like a short comment where he said that the plan is to have hold 6 players for the end of until the end of the year, and then they try out NiKo and AmaNEk and NiKo and JaCkz. I think that are the 2 combinations. The other 3 are safe, from what I understand.
Sure.
And then
All 4 are safe, including NiKo, just to clarify.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then they'll see what fits better, and then they'll decide for like the roster for 221.
NiKo basically confirmed this as well in that interview. Just to add on to that, which is he essentially said that AmaNEk and JaCkz were going to have the exact same role. When whichever one plays, like the rest of the team is going to be exactly the same role wise, and just AmaNEk and JaCkz are going to fit into that last role, which I imagine is just going to be the same role that kind of JaCkz had, because NiKo said he was going back to lurking in that interview as well, which means it has to be JaCkz's role that is going to be filled, between AmaNEk and JaCkz, and they figure out who actually fits it better, who's going to do it better. And NiKo is going to slot more into like AmaNEk's old roles and switch around a little bit more with that, with him being kind of on the anchor and on the lurking side, on the T side. So that's basically the deal.
Okay, so let's try and frame the question this way. Peacemaker, from the top of like your head, from what you've seen and knowing of the players, who do you think will fit the team better here, AmaNEk or JaCkz? Which one do you reckon will stay? This is kind of like us doing like one of those shows we get to vote someone off.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense if AmaNEk stays on the team.
Okay.
I think AmaNEk, like he does roles for the team, and I kind of feel like AmaNEk is one of those players that he's kind of like underrated. Like I've worked with him back then in Misfits, and I knew that he was really good, but he just didn't get enough credit back then. And I feel like once he got the opportunity to join G2, I think he actually delivered pretty well for quite some time. And then everybody was kind of talking about him, how good he was and stuff like that. And then I think he went up and downs in terms of performance. But role-wise, I think it makes a lot of sense if AmaNEk stays, and I don't know, if they're gonna try to make it work like a 6-man roster, just like Vitality and Astralis and whatever, like then for me that's fine, as long as NiKo gets to do what he excels the most. And that's my concern. It's just that, like, I mean, NiKo is for sure very, very talented, and he can do anything. Like we saw it back in the days where he was AWPing and in-game leading and going everywhere and doing crazy things. So like definitely he can do any roles as long as he wants and works hard for it. But the thing is that with NiKo, I feel like he needs to have first. I think that NiKo needs to be like the second voice in the team, purely based on his experience. And all of that, it requires him to be very active. So if him and NEXE become a good combo, and they are aligned with each other, and NiKo gets to do the stuff that he likes as a lurker, then that's fine. But I would also be curious to see if in the long run this is gonna work out for him as a lurker, or if they will try to maybe move the pieces around, and maybe, I don't know, who knows if NiKo will be a part of the map control in certain maps, maybe simply because of the fact he can deliver a lot individually, and maybe also help NEXE in that sense. So yeah, I don't know. Like definitely, I'm very curious to see how he's gonna develop as a lurker. It's still a question mark. We'll see later today, right? Yeah. So like we'll see later today how it goes. But I think in the long run, I wouldn't be surprised if in between maps NiKo could possibly do different roles. Also on the city side, right? Like NiKo, I see NiKo as a guy that needs space in order to perform, and then if you put him on as an anchor, then it could be one of those situations where people only go on the other side of the map or try to do stuff like that, and then NiKo feels kind of useless because he's anchor, he's not getting much action, and he's a player that in my eyes he should be constantly in the action simply because he's really, really good. So we gotta wait and see how it goes.
I wouldn't mind grabbing a point that you just made there, especially the one about, you know, having NiKo as the second voice. Now, if we look back at his previous teams, obviously mouz Sports and FaZe, we'll use those two examples. The more vocal NiKo became because the team couldn't keep up with his output, the team eventually still became rocky, right? I think that can be seen in both of those equations. So, Prof, I'm going to throw this one to you. Based off of what Peacemaker was just saying there, that he feels that he needs to be more of a second voice in the team or having the roles where he is the most comfortable. Do you think, A, that's what G2 are thinking is the option? And if not, well, actually, give me the first answer, then I'll work out where I'm going with it.
So do you think that G2 is expecting NiKo to like sit in A site on Mirage under balcony and chill there and wait for it to execute and kill two guys? Is that like what you're talking about?
What I'm trying to go in the direction of here is, do you think that they're going to allow NiKo to come into the team as NiKo, or do you think they're going to have him come into the team as, yeah, you're a good player, but you're in our team, and Malik's going to have the reins here and tell him where, you know, where they need the gaps for or where Malik sees him used best?
Yeah,
I think that's the plan. Like for Malik to put him in roles where he needs to be, and for NiKo to shut up when he needs to shut up. I think he mentioned something like that in the interview. Like if Nexus tells me to shut up, I'll shut up and won't say anything.
But at the same time, yeah, go for it.
It doesn't have to be that. Like even if you think something like this is going to be like that, even if both sides want it to be like that, doesn't mean it will work like that when you get into the server, right? So I don't know.
At the same time, NiKo also said that G2 are trying to get away a little bit more from the structured way that they were approaching the game in the last, I don't know what it is now, a year or something, that they've had this lineup, and they're trying to get a little bit more freedom with this addition of NiKo. So it's pretty clear that they are willing to change quite a bit just to accommodate a player like NiKo into the team, which I think makes a lot of sense because, like Peacemaker said, I think NiKo is the kind of a player who needs a lot of space, or maybe not a lot of space, but just a lot of freedom to create his own space, essentially, because he's always been that kind of a player who didn't necessarily need people around him to help him, but he just needed the freedom to, you know, go out and make moves and make individual plays. Essentially, that's basically what NiKo has been, whether in mouz Sports when he was in that more of a lurking role, or in FaZe where he was a bit more, you know, with the pack and stuff like that.
So this one here, Striker, I want to pivot it to, because we're talking about lots of like in-game things right now, and we're talking about like roles and who's going to fit what positions better. We're discussing the fact that AmaNEk is obviously a very good player, but there would be overlap there with NiKo and doing like secondary AWPing, right? Because we know Kenny's going to be primary AWPing. In the past, It was just AmaNEk who was doing secondary. Nexa,
he didn't do it much though. Like they didn't actually do secondary AWPing too much.
Yeah. Mirage CT side, you know, was a map where they'd use it. Like it wasn't something that they'd obviously pull out like whenever they felt like Vitality having JaCkz and fucking ZywOo do it every, you know, couple of rounds.
I feel like they're more going to use it as like an X Factor thing when NiKo feels it, you know, picks it up, wants to make some moves there, he's going to pick it up. I don't feel like, I mean, I've never thought of AmaNEk as much of a secondary opera. I feel like he just did it because they kind of needed an op potentially on the other side of the map every now and again, and that's about it. He wasn't like a massive impact player on the op when he had it.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this, because like from that perspective, in terms of what NiKo can bring, he overlaps with some of AmaNEk's, you know, uses as well. And then there's another point here which I think we haven't really touched on, is it's quite clear. I know JaCkz is one of the older players within the team. People haven't heard of him for, you know, he hasn't been around forever, but he's an older guy, all things considered, with his professional career. But he always looks like he is. I don't want to say the life of the party. That's not what I mean. It always looks like he's just a happy-go-lucky kind of guy who I think is really important for players in the team in terms of mood. Like just watching, I look at a lot of players' social media, right? Because I like to keep track of what they're doing.
You're talking about JaCkz.
Yeah.
So okay. Because I thought you started with AmaNEk, and then I was like, that's perfectly JaCkz. That doesn't make any sense with AmaNEk.
Yeah. So with JaCkz being that level of an individual and having NiKo come in, knowing that now there's going to be like I I want to be careful. Well, no, I don't want to be careful with this. Like, there's obviously going to be a boys' club within the team now, right? There would have been before. It probably would have been the 3 Frenchies, you know, who all you maybe assume that they get along quite well. But now that's going to shift, right? Obviously, Hunter and NiKo, they're bloody cousins, and then NeXe is part of that gang. Like, do you think that there's going to be any issues? Like, because there are going to be problems, right? Do you see that keeping somebody like JaCkz in, who's a good mood bringer, that's probably the best way I can put it, is important for a team like this?
I don't know.
I like
who
the
you asked
idea
this
of it.
question. It was so long.
No, I mean,
My point is,
I understand the point.
comparison of AmaNEk and JaCkz, right? JaCkz is going to bring a lot more to the team from that perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he definitely felt like the heart of the team alongside kNgV, I would say. You know, in terms of, you know, being kind of out there and having fun and things like that. So for sure, I can see I can see your point. Whether that's going to be a problem if he's out, I'm not entirely sure. Just because that there's also MALEK behind the team who's kind of balancing things out and stuff like that in terms of, like, you know, who's in power. Obviously, G2 are more of a setup where like the leadership is in power, where like the management and the coaching staff has that kind of has the deciding powers. So I feel like in terms of balance, it's going to be just fine whoever they pick, whether it's AmaNEk or JaCkz. But in terms of the mood, I can see where you're coming from. That there's definitely going to be a shift depending on which way they go, because AmaNEk, I feel like, is like almost the opposite of JaCkz in that case, where he's a lot more shy, or not shy, but, you know, quiet and things like that.
Okay, I have something also to add, because you mentioned like being like not a boys club, but like having like groups within the team.
Yeah.
One of the things when I talked to MALEK, I don't know if this was on an interview or just like privately, but I don't think he minds sharing. One of the things he did for the LANs that they had when they built this like Serbian French team is like the deal was to always split up the rooms with like having like one Serbian, one French guy. So they also to speak like English, and also just to like get the guys to like kind of mesh together better. So I think MALEK is pretty smart in those kinds of things, like interpersonal relationships. So I think he's going to be smart with that. But like I think we can just go around to finalize this and say who we think is going to stick in the roster.
Yeah.
And like start with Peacemaker. Just like give our predictions to who is going to be the 5th player then for G2.
I think it's gonna be AmaNEk. I think it just makes more sense. And just one quick thought is that AmaNEk might look like introspective from outside, like when you guys look at him. But I think I don't know how good his English is. That's one thing. That maybe it's one of the reasons why he could be kind of look like introspective in social media and that kind of stuff. He's not really a social media guy. But in the team, like I feel like if he's comfortable and all that, he is as fun as JaCkz. Like at least when I work with him, like that guy is really funny. Like, and he also sets up a good mood. So I don't know, who knows how it is inside the team, right? But I think that role wise and after all what we talked about, I just think it makes more sense that AmaNEk sticks around. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay.
Who you got, striker?
I actually think it's more of JaCkz that's going to fit, just because of what I was saying earlier, just because there are more clashes between AmaNEk and NiKo. And in terms of what AmaNEk used to do on the team and what NiKo is now going to do, I feel like there would be a lot of clashes. So I guess it depends on whether AmaNEk is going to be able to take over more of JaCkz's role and how that's going to fit him. That's going to decide things. But I feel like role-wise, it makes more sense for JaCkz to be in and to be the first guy in and help and be the bait for Hunter and things like that.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there on the JaCkz one, but we also don't know today who they're using. As per your website, it's got Hunter, Kenny, NeXe, and NiKo, and TVA. So they could even swap in between maps like we saw Vitality doing earlier. But I think JaCkz in the long run will probably outlast, and I think that the interpersonal, just the stuff I've seen, like I think that JaCkz would win out in that one. If it was like a bachelorette type situation, he'd be the one getting given the rose. Who you got, Prof?
I think actually communication wise, I think AmaNEk is better in English, right, than JaCkz. I think that is the thing that goes his way. I think roles depends also on CTT side, like on depending on what there are going to be like more clashes with one or the other. I think AmaNEk could though become like on the T side, just there like run in and die guy.
Yeah.
Like he does that already with the Mac 10 or whatever. He's comfortable doing that. So I think that is, I mean, JaCkz also can do that, but I think AmaNEk can step into that role if they decide to remove JaCkz. So I think that gives me, like, now thinking about it, initially I was thinking like AmaNEk is out. So maybe now thinking, maybe leaning more to like JaCkz is out, AmaNEk stays.
Okay. All right.
I feel
well,
like both make sense from certain points of view for sure. The
Yeah.
communication part, I think, is a big one as well, just because it's always been something that's kind of hung over JaCkz's head. You know, with his English being kind of iffy and not perfect. At the same time, like I've never had a different feeling with AmaNEk because he's never been one to do interviews and stuff like that. He's never been particularly prone to doing that as well. And people have said that he's not particularly comfortable with English either. So I'm not sure if there's a massive difference. But yeah, it could be a factor as well for sure.
all right, let's wrap this up on G2 and the whole FaZe situation. Let's move this forward because in recent news, we also had something coming out of the 100 Thieves core. So that is Gratis Faction, Azza, and Liaz. They're the three who have been left over since JaCkz went and joined Apex and JaCkz has gone and playing for Complexity. Now, there was a rumor, or there was a report, not a rumor, that came out about Liaz potentially going to Gen.G. Now, the new stuff around the 100 Thieves core is a team called EXTREMUM. Is that how we're saying it? EXTREMUM?
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay. Interesting. I went to their Twitter and stuff, and they have like a decent chunk of followers, but fuck all interaction. So when I do that and I see that, it normally makes me very skeptical because I've never heard of them before. I'm pretty ignorant, I know that, but look,
They have like a CI or had a CIS team.
they did.
it's a Russian organization.
Okay, so what do
let me
we
just
know
check.
about them?
Not much, to be honest. I just know
They
that they're
have,
Russian. They have some like big like investor behind them or something, but I don't really know too much more.
Okay,
Same.
so what's the team, Prof? Do you know?
They don't have it anymore, but they
Okay.
had.
I'm
They
having a
had
look.
the team.
Okay, so they played some matches. Their last thing they played was on the 23rd of August in 2020.
They had Waterfalls from
Okay.
QB Fire fame, and
Yep.
then like four guys and Koshak, the guy that played in China.
Yes.
So and then three guys that probably no one heard of.
Okay.
But they had a team in this year, and they have like some weirdly cool, edgy social media like presence. If you saw, like they have like cool graphics and everything, and then
Yeah.
the team is just like the results are nowhere near that level. So that was kind of weird to me. But
It looks
Okay.
very streetwear type situation that's going on
yeah,
here.
yeah.
I'm
That's
actually
something-
looking at like their historic rosters, and like late last year they even had Jimko and Valina, so kind
Okay.
of like a QB Fire core, I guess you could call it.
Okay, so they have some money, and we know they're from Russia. So that's what we know. But let's
Pretty
talk
much.
about what this means. So let's just assume that everything's above board, and they can get like a decent deal, and they have money to spend. Well, this trio are going to need two more players. Now, first of all, Peacemaker, do you think this trio should stay together, or do you think they should try and find homes elsewhere?
Honestly, it's so hard to judge because I don't know, like chemistry-wise, how good they fit together. Apparently, they are really good friends and they have been around for such a long time. But I personally feel like they would probably benefit the most by going separate ways. Simply because I feel like a guy like AZR, for example, he can definitely get a opportunity somewhere else as an in-game leader. I think a lot of teams would probably benefit a lot from having a guy like him. And then yeah, I feel like it would make more sense in my mind without knowing any context that they go separate ways. And also because nowadays it's so hard to build a team. I mean, of course, if you have money and big investor, that helps a lot. But that doesn't necessarily mean everything. Like sometimes, even though you have money, it's not like everyone wants to come just for the money. Like people are also looking to join a good team with a good project behind and team that they actually believe in. So I think to align all those pieces, it will have to be something that, like, with a lot of money and with the two new pieces that I actually can't think of right now, that would fit right into the system they want and all of that. So in my mind, it would be a lot easier, going separate.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Is what players are even like available for these guys to pick up? Prof, do you think they would dive back home and pick up some more like Aussies or New Zealanders or even people from Southeast Asia, or do you think they'd be looking to take this thing international?
I don't know. I think the report said that they were looking for 2 European players to finalize the roster. So I think that kind of makes sense. I think it's easier, and if you're based in Europe already, why not pick up European players? It's just like it's simpler, and you know how like the players that you pick up are tested in the environment that they're going to be playing in. Of course, I mean, someone already was in chat saying like sponge, like quotation mark blah blah get Dexter. I would like to see that as well, but it's like it makes sense just to pick up some European talents, like any like FPL guys or whatever that you can get on the cheap, and if they don't work, you can like kick them and get new guys. But it's a good start. Like if this org wants to be like good, you pick up these 3 players, and it's a very good start, because what Peacemaker is saying, you can't really pick up like any top 100 player into EXTREMUM to build a lineup around him. You need to pick up like a core and then add players to it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So from that perspective, I understand.
Well, we know that Azza will be in game leading, right? We know that Liaz can try and fill more of a star role, ish. See what potentially has playing positions he's comfortable with. Gratisfaction's always going to be a question mark, right, Striker? So, like, if you were spitballing, you don't even have to get free agents right now. But, like, and obviously, you can't just say, or add Simple and fucking Zywoo. But, like, in terms of, like, players that might fit or might suit, like...
I'm trying to think of who's at least kind of free or, like, could be potentially leaving and stuff like that. It's really hard to remember anything or anybody who could fit.
Like, we know Smoo is available on the AWP right now, right? But like,
yeah, but
we had him just on the other week. But
and he also said that he wanted to primary up, and I don't think Gratis would give it up. So doesn't really fit. Who else is on the market? I'm trying to.
This is probably gonna have to be like a bit of a deeper dive into like the European scene to find out like some star player from like, I don't know, Ago or some shit, and pick him up. Or
I
like,
think they would probably end
like
up in a situation where they have to buy out. Yeah, I'm thinking they would probably end up in a situation where they have to buy some 2 players out of their contracts from one of these less known teams. Well, not less known, but like tier 2, tier 3 teams, like I said, AGO or I don't know, along
like
those lines.
Maybe from Mad Lions, you have one guy's on contract, Innocent. Maybe that's
Sell
a good.
him.
There you go. That could be a
Here's what we do: we teach Axial and Mia English, and they can join.
Yeah,
great. And like, as if Navi wouldn't buy them out if that was possible. Come on.
Look, that's that region, right?
XL, I'm not, maybe not, but Mir for sure would have been already bought out by somebody if it was possible.
There is some fucking nuts talent in that CIS region. But the thing that bothers me about this is, I think like kNgV right now, like you look at who's on that team: Bente, Automatic, and Kusta. If they're not getting like Liaz plus another, like I thought it was gonna be Liaz and Oba who were gonna go to that team. I was like, yeah, kNgV, they can be pretty sick. Like they could probably do some damage. They got some good players in there. But now, if the boys want to stay together and they want to build a European team, like there's so many hurdles here. Like let's just start with the initial hurdle. Is first of all, you're residents in the US who now want to become residents somewhere in Europe, I would assume.
Yep.
During a global pandemic where you physically can't go back to your country of origin of Australia because you will not be able to leave without an exemption from the government to go anywhere else.
Sounds like a Serbian boot camp to me.
That's what they all sound like, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, what do you even do? Like, how do you make a decision of this magnitude right now? It is like the worst time to possibly be trying to do things. Like the JaCkz one was easy. It's like, yeah, you're joining, you're the 5th, we'll get you on a plane, you're Australian, the guys in the UK love you, we'll get to the UK, here you go, play some games, right? Like, but to bring the core and then buy 2 new players and then make it work. You saw what happened the other day with Cloud9. They were boot camping and Alex had to go home a couple of days in because France went, we're locking everything down. You know, it's getting bad here in Germany as well. Like, it just seems like such a difficult time to make this happen. So, look, there's probably not too much we can dig into this because it's all just speculation. So I wish them the best of luck with it. And maybe I'll message Aaron and I'll try and get some information on it. But all in all, right now, that's probably where we'll leave that news.
Honestly,
someone did mention in the chat. I just want to do like a funny bit. That actually, Striker, you go first. You're gonna say something not dumb. So
yeah, I wasn't gonna say something that dumb. I was just expecting kNgV, or not expecting, but it would make sense for kNgV to get both Liaz and Azza.
Yeah. That would work as well. Then
obviously, it fucks Gratisfaction because nobody will take him after that. I don't think that's the biggest problem to me. I see with Grat is that he doesn't really have the power to replace like a good opera on a team or whatever. Like he's not that kind of a player, so he's gonna have a hard time finding a team on his own. So I feel like that's why he would probably best team up with Azza and Liaz and try to make a new team. But if I was talking about how like the separate pieces could go together, it's definitely Liaz and Azza to kNgV, because kNgV are obviously also looking for an in-game leader, or potentially, unless AmaNEk wants to take over the reins or something. So
yeah,
just logically it makes sense.
Wasn't
Well, there-
Kuster in game leading?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
There's a question in chat. If EXTREMUM create a team with 3 from 100 Thieves, don't they have to go to NA to play the major qualifier tournaments? That is correct, unless they want to
They
just
can
start.
choose.
No, they have to. If now that they have points, if they want to keep the points, they have to go to NA to play NA tournaments,
Okay.
or they
Or
can
reset.
just reset, start from zero in Europe,
Okay.
which kind of sucks from that perspective if they want to be a European team. Also, someone pointed out in chat, and I remember seeing this when I was doing the article, I guess on the, I don't know, one of the EXTREMUM teams. The text that they have on their website is amazing, so I have to read it.
Okay.
We don't want to be the best esports brand. We are bigger than esports. We are young. We are fresh. We are the new generation. We are creating style. Why? Why are we doing all this stuff? The answer is simple. It's all about legacy. We are EXTREMUM. We are style. Join us, follow us, be a part of our family.
Dude, I was looking at the bio, which says essentially like a part of this as well. I could just see the join us, and it just sounds like a cult, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
It's pretty funny, I
Look,
have to say.
I'm a fan of money. So if they have lots of it, why not?
Bunch joins EXTREMUM as coach. Let's go.
Look, as long as I can be style, you know, I want to be style. That's what I'm looking for.
They are creating style. So
That's what I'm
you
looking for. All right, we're gonna move forward into some rumors. So what was going on the other day? Can anyone tell me? I just picked up my phone and I'm seeing all these fucking tweets and there's like mentioning zehN and all the players like GODSENT are trolling about it and shit. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Is there any legitimacy to this rumor?
There seems to
Uh,
be.
There is definitely interest from ENCE, and this was the report. The report wasn't like zehN is signing. It was just like ENCE are interested, and zehN is probably to some degree interested because he's Finnish, I guess. I don't know, but nothing more than that. Like the situation isn't really clear. I mean, we did talk about it a couple of episodes ago when I mentioned like GODSENT are the team that people are gonna try to pick apart at this moment, just because they're as an organization probably on the lower tiers, but the players they have are kind of above that, and then all of the other organizations, the Flashpoint teams, the other teams that are making roster changes, even like FaZe, whatever, they're going to be looking at them to pick up the pieces that they need. And at the same time, there is FPX that are looking for a whole complete roster, and that's also a thing that has been reported on, and it's like they are interested in buying out the whole lineup. Which, of course, if zehN goes to ENCE, that complicates things, as it did with the ENCE tag going to Astralis from Heroic, like at the beginning of the year. So that's just a very weird situation for GODSENT to be in right now, right?
So let's break the problems down. Let's start with the first one. If zehN goes to ENCE, so assumably, obviously, Ariel is no longer competing over there, but zehN's 28. Is he the solution? Do you think, Peacemaker? Do you think him as a player is the part that ENCE are looking for to get more consistency or to be better as a team?
Actually surprised me that a guy like zehN, who has been in the scene for quite some time now, I remember him back in the days in Penta and all of that, and surprisingly he never really played for the likes of ENCE, or I actually never heard of them even considering him. I don't know if there's any personality issues or anything like that, but I just found out that he was never considered. I remember we considered him back then in one of the teams I coached, but I don't remember who. But I remember watching demos from him, and it's not like he's bad or anything. I think he was actually pretty good. And now in GODSENT, we saw him the other day. I don't remember who it was against, but he had a really good series.
They played
Recently.
Heroic yesterday, right?
Yeah, exactly. So he had a really good series against Heroic. And actually, if you look statistically speaking, like he is pretty okay. Some downs, but he has delivering pretty good against top teams. And I mean, I don't know if in the long run, if it's exactly what they need. Like I'm always like when you pick up a older player, like there's different expectations that comes together with it. And I don't think it's necessarily bad, like just because you're 28 years old, that it's gonna be a failure or anything like that. It really comes down to if it fits role-wise and if he would be really motivated to leave a project like GODSENT, which seems pretty stable right now, in order to join ENCE, to compete and speak his maybe go back home and play for his home team or something like that, then maybe it would be interesting for him. But I don't see any issues. Like I think actually, as I said, I think he should have got an opportunity way back, and maybe that's the time that he gets an opportunity to play there. But in the long run, obviously, you want to always try to aim for getting younger players who has more time to develop and for the future. Basically, like that's kind of like how the business model works nowadays. But yeah,
Okay.
those are my thoughts.
Just to put things into perspective, right? GODSENT are number 20, ENCE are number 21.
Yes. So that's what I was going to pivot to you with, Striker, is do you think if he was to go to ENCE, would that be a better move than where he is now? Or would he be better off at GODSENT?
Honestly, I feel like he's better off where he is just because GODSENT clearly have more potential in the future, I think.
They also don't have a VAC banned player.
Well, that's another factor for sure, yeah. So it's just I feel like staying with GODSENT is definitely the way to go, just because they've been trending upwards for quite a long time now, and they have really shown ways
capable of these big upsets, right? Like when this is the last time ends, like they probably did manage 1 or 2, but like GODSENT beat a lot of top teams in this year, not consistently, but like here and there.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, like I said, GODSENT are just trending upwards, while ENCE are more like at best stagnant, I guess you could say at this point. So it's kind of a no-brainer to me for zehN to just remain, especially if he's getting like a big org behind him. If these FBX rumors come true, then even the financial aspect wouldn't be there. So I imagine just everything kind of goes in GODSENT's favor outside of him wanting to go back to a Finnish team and back to his home country.
So, Prof, what do you think is the chances? Because I'm with Striker here. I think that it's probably better off staying where he is. Because ENCE haven't been able to make the pieces of the puzzle work just yet. But if he was to stay where he currently is with GODSENT, now earlier in the year with the Pronax stuff that went down, with GODSENT as an organization, do you think anything from that period of time would lean towards the idea that GODSENT want to sell these guys?
Yeah, I mean, that has also, I think, been reported, like that they are looking to sell the lineup. So this is also a part of the things that we can't really talk about that much because salaries aren't public and buyouts aren't public, and we don't really know all of these details. But from what I gathered, it's like GODSENT are simply not up to the par with all of these other orgs that are currently looking for lineups and teams. And I think it's just that is going to be the number one deciding factor. Like if one player gets picked off, then everyone's just going to be leaving the team sooner or later, just like all of the best pieces from the team at least. So, and then if they stick together, go to FPX, maybe that could be like a completely different ball game, right? And before all of this EXTREMUM stuff, I was thinking that like Azure would be the perfect fit for them as an in-game leader to replace Crystal. Maybe not tactically, but I think Firepower definitely upgrade, and then kind of similar roles as well to what they do. I think that would be like a pretty amazing lineup to have. I don't know, but I don't. It's very hard to see. I don't think it will be. I think definitely Heroic are trending. GODSENT are trending downward with all of these rumors, and all of this happening in the background is not helping the players perform at all.
Yeah.
So the longer it goes on, it's going to be harder to actually like to sell them, or for a player to like for all the players to stick together, because like bad results are just going to be turned into frustration and then you leave. But they did qualify; they beat Heroic yesterday, so I'm just talking out of my ass, right?
No, Curious thing though, they skipped the qualifier for Beijing. Assumingly because of these things, either because of the transfers or because of zehN's kind of interest in ENCE. But at the same time, since they played a game like what is it, yesterday or two days later after the Beijing qualifier started, who the hell knows what's going on, to be honest.
I think there's a bit of that because there's been those players' names have been in the back chats like of rooms for a while now, because the pieces of that team are great. Like everybody wants a fucking Stiko. There's a bunch of teams that could use a Madden, or there's a bunch of teams that could use like a Farley. So there's like, you look at that team right now and you think, fuck, they're ripe to be taken apart. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens with GODSENT. Hopefully they stay together, because they were looking promising a little bit earlier in the year. Let's go.
You know what? I'm just gonna add one more thing. You know what would suck is if FPX get fucked by an organization stealing a player of a roster that they want to buy, and it just
Again.
falls through because of that again. I would hate to see that happen just because of, FPX
track
being this
record.
big org that comes into the scene, tries to buy out a Heroic. Doesn't work out because of a Satan going to Astralis, and then it happens again with GODSENT and zehN. So I'd hate to see that happen. So I'm hoping that even if zehN goes to ENCE, they're just going to sign another player, somehow make the team even better, and FPX actually get what they want.
At least it's not going to happen like mid-tournament. So
Yeah,
since they skipped Flashpoint too. So
yeah.
All right, so let's keep it moving. Let's jump into some of the Blast Premier Fall series now. If you haven't been paying attention, Blast started on Monday last week. And they have some of the big names in their tournament. Now I'll just read these out for everybody. We'll kind of surmise everything and then we'll go from there. So same as what they did in the start of the year. We had 3 groups of 4 teams. So the teams are Na'Vi, NIP, Evil Geniuses, OG. That's Group A. Group B is Vitality, Complexity, Big, FaZe. And then Group C, which is starting in 10 minutes, is Astralis, MIBR, Furia, and G2. And one of the keys that Blast have had here is a fantastic little nugget for them to use for the storylines. There's all these new rosters, right? They're going to get the debut of G2 with NiKo today. And we're going to see MIBR's new team, since they've have the 3 stand-ins or emergency players here, just to see how things go. Astralis with zehX coming back. Complexity with JaCkz was in a debut. FaZe with Olaf coming back was another big one. Vitality actually doing mid fucking series 6-man changes with Nevera. Even JaCkz got subbed on out. We're going to get North America going up against Europe. We had EG go up against OG and NIP, and then we're going to get Furia obviously going up against hopefully the likes of Astralis. So there was so many things going on, like from a storyline perspective for this tournament. But one of the ones that I think we should start off with was OG. We're not going flawless. They dropped 2 maps throughout, but they beat EG. They beat Na'Vi, and then they beat Na'Vi again. Pretty solid stuff from OG.
Shocking, of course.
Yeah.
Not really what we expected from them. I don't like, this was kind of a while ago. What I looked back on, I realized that like Alexi had a great tournament, like great for his standards and for his role. What he's doing for the team and calling as well. I think 108 rating, and then fucking Mantu again, like 130 rating over the, I don't know, 8-9 maps that they played. So those were the 2 win conditions for them. I think if Alexi B is going to be like performing like that, that is going to unlock you a lot of just map space, right? He's kind of a risky player in that regard and plays for the team. And then if he's getting frags on top of that, then that's going to be just like a winning material for those guys. And I think the very interesting part was the mic'd up segment that they had when they were retaking and Alexi B is micromanaging.
Yeah.
Especially from the perspective of like FaZe potentially getting Alexi B and then NiKo saying that he didn't think Alexi was the right fit. I think when you watch that, you realize he wasn't the right fit. I think that is exactly what FaZe doesn't need, like that much micromanaging. Like you move here, you go here. It's like, I don't think that would have been the winning formula either. Just like an off topic, just because that's a very topical thing now with the NiKo interview and everything. It's like, we couldn't get an in-game leader. Maybe it would still be good. Maybe it'd be better than FaZe was, probably. But it wasn't the ideal combination. I don't think so. Far from it.
So looking at this one here, Peacemaker, OG, right, with the playstyle that Prof was saying Alexi B has, right, like he does a lot for the team. He seems to be the one, when there is an issue, he'll just go and fill that gap by himself or take that risk for the team. With him as that type of a leader, how far do you think OG can go? Do you think that there's like a cap on that, if he needs to do that grunt work, or he can eventually teach a player to be able to fill those gaps? Or what do you think the limit is for OG?
I think, first of all, like OG is that team that is not really on the radar that much. And suddenly, at least for us, like OG is not a team that I'm constantly watching demos and trying to see how they play and that kind of stuff. Like the only thing I did recently was to see, actually when we're talking about Alexib, like we watched a couple of demos from Nuke, and holy shit, the Alexib guy, like he creates so much space for his team, and like they have a very specific way of approaching and using him in that map. And definitely underrated. And if you're not aware of all the moves and all the stuff he does for the team, then you can definitely get a caught off guard a lot. And I feel like Alexi is constantly doing those things. And in terms of like how far I think they can go, I mean, first of all, it's kind of surprising for me that they are still together. There wasn't any roster changes and nobody is getting out. Like, because they are that type of team that is like international, and then when you look at the pieces they have, like a guy like Alexiev, even though he might not be the greatest fit for FaZe, but he could definitely be a very good option. Then you look at valde, for example, for Danish teams. Like, it's very surprising that they're able to keep the roster without any changes and stuff. That's the first thing. And the second thing is just like the results are obviously looks really good. It wasn't like very dominant if you look at results purely results wise. And like they beat EG, which in my opinion, like they came from pretty long time playing in NA, and I'm not really sure if they were used to, if they got enough time practicing here to know how teams are playing and all of that. And I definitely think that the practicing in NA nowadays, you definitely develop a lot of bad habits, and you're just simply not following the meta in Europe. That's a big issue in my eyes. And the second thing is that I mean they did a good series against EG, and then when you see Navi, just Navi for me is one of those teams that they first, like, obviously they rely a lot on simple performing in electronic, like those are the star players, and there is really high expectations on them simply because they most of the times deliver their A game, and you kind of have those high expectations on them even because their B game for those players is so high up there that once one of them kind of doesn't perform, then Navi kind of looks a bit shaky. But Navi, I feel like Navi always been kind of shaky online. I think they are really, really good, but they are not a team that when I look at the results online and the performances they put, it's not like, it doesn't surprise me that OG beat them twice. But like if it was on LAN, then I have my doubts if it would be the same outcome, that kind of stuff. I feel like Navi is a team that when they are on LAN, competing offline events and all of that, I think they are a lot better. Yeah.
I think it was also because of Electronic kind of going missing in that entire group. He never really had that the sort of impact that we see from him. It was really mostly simple, you know, being simple and not really having too much help from firepower wise from the others. And just Electronic is the guy you normally look to, and he wasn't really showing up either. So I feel like that was a big reason why OG managed to take them down twice.
Well, I think here, like, this is a question I was going to throw your way, Striker, because you seem to have a pretty good database in your head of like all these players who have come on through.
Sure.
But in the last, well, it's 2 years, not 2 years. It's a year now since OG have been a roster. Mantu within that period of time has to be probably the best pickup. Right, like I'm talking about a player that wasn't on anybody's radar.
Most surprising for sure, I think. Most surprising being good.
Yeah, like, but that's the thing. Like, he wasn't even a primary AWPer on his previous team. He was secondary AWPing. Yeah. And you look at his stats within OG now, like
they're pretty insane.
They're fucking nuts. Like he is legit. Like Mantu is fucking. It's obviously it's all online CS, right? But that's where we are right now. I'm not going to fucking split hairs on that until we know when we go back to LAN, which could be fucking never. Well, that got depressing. Like Mantu is he seems like the real deal. I was going to ask you, Striker, if there are any other names that off the top of your head that you could think of have like come in and perform at, because this team is a team full of everybody else around him had achieved something or had been like, you know, a good player at one point. MBK obviously. Yeah. Issa in Hellraisers was part of the star duo with WoxIC. You obviously have valde, who top of the Danish charts. We always talk about that one there. And Alexi B with the ENCE roster making it deep in the major run. Like those guys have all definitely been around the blocks already. Whereas this kid just comes in and he is the most consistent factor of the whole team. Like there's one name that pops to mind that's kind of comparable. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say Brokey just because nobody really expected him to be as good as he is, to be honest. Like nobody saw that coming.
He also took a bit to get going, Brokey, though.
Yeah,
I think.
For sure.
Like,
he needed to switch around roles and stuff like that, figure out the thing with the op and whatever. But he definitely grew into it pretty quickly.
They've really bought into the whole team mantra over there at OG. They're like, this when I do an interview with valde and like we ask him some questions and he had like a sick performance and I was like, hey, like how do we get that out of you all the time? And that's just, you know, that everybody can have a doubt that. I'm like, no, they can't. Like, no, they can't. Like, you, valde, can have a day like that, and Mantu can probably have a day like that. But like, Alexi can have an impact game, Issa can have an impact game, and MBK can have an impact game. But the two like guys who should be fragging at the top should always be valde and Mantu, right? Like, they're the two players who, at least in my mind, heads and shoulders above the rest, and that's not how they were winning games, which is very surprising to me that they're getting across the line with Mantu being consistent, and then it's always just someone else chipping in with a good performance, and they're getting wins. So look,
There
I want
was
to
a
see.
interview just with Mantu. He did mention about like the whole of the team aspect. I think
Yeah.
I wrote it out. He said something like, "We fixed our issues between players." So that's a thing. That was the only thing that they attributed the good blast performance to. So I don't know. It is like the Dota OG mantra that they have to stick together and team works. I don't know, long term, however. So I don't know. Seems to be working, even though I don't believe it. So
Well, it's like I didn't think they would be a dangerous team at all, but now they clearly are a dangerous team.
They
Like,
can be like if they hit the checkpoints, basically, like they
Yeah.
can be a good team. But it's just like the question of when they do, because it's not really consistent with them. But I feel like they've been doing it a little bit more in recent times. And
For
from
sure.
what I was looking at, like the ranking, they've actually been on the up, like improving consistently the entire time since they got put together. I think they're at their peak now after that.
someone
blast
did
at, like
did make
upgrade.
like a picture on Reddit with their like ranking on HLTV and just like it made like a, I don't know, like a average through the time and just extended it for 3 months.
I know.
And like in 3 months they're going to be number one with their trajectory that they've been on. But it has been pretty long, it seems like, at least considering we are in CSR like 3 to 6 months. If you're not doing good, fuck off. Do some changes, right?
Well, I look at the team. If we can get more consistent performances out of Volda, like as a star player, and Issa can play better with his ping issue. For those people who don't know, he's playing from fucking home, so his ping is going to be like in the realms of like 80 plus. The poor guy. Then they're looking good. Like they've put in the work, and they're starting to play some good CS when other teams are faltering, and you can't argue with the results at the moment. So good stuff from them. But one who we do need to talk about here, and Peacemaker already delved into it a little bit, was EG. Now, does anybody know, are EG going home now? I thought they were having to play in Beijing, right?
No,
They
no,
should
no,
be.
No,
They should be playing
Oh
in
no, no,
Beijing.
yeah, you're right.
Which is in 5 days or something. So that's it.
Yeah, like let's bring this. Actually,
I think
we're in
the
blast
original
zone, but-
plan for them was to like go back to the US and
Yeah.
then come back again later. But with
Might not be possible now.
that,
Yeah.
and also the thing is like they would be coming back, I guess, mostly because of the LAN of like the LAN IM Global Challenge, right?
Yeah.
And considering like the recent German lockdowns and everything, that could be like very unlikely to happen. So I'm not sure if it's worth it for them to come back for the Blast Showdown. And
I was gonna go the other way.
No, I think it makes sense for them to stay.
They shouldn't go home. Like,
Yeah.
listen to this event at Beijing. Like, listen to these teams. Liquid, yeah, okay, cool. Chaos, yeah, okay, cool. And then we're in Team 1, New England Whalers, Triumph, Rebirth, and Rugrats. Why would you fly home to play that? Like, what would be the point?
you would fly home to qualify for IM Global Challenge, right?
But they'll qualify
That's-
anyway. They're going to qualify over Liquid because Furia already have the invite, right? So EG should stay in Europe. They just need to. It's
just need to-
ESL World Rankings. Let me check.
That's like ranking based, right? The part of
They
it.
Yeah,
have
so let me check.
some spots. I think they have one spot.
Available for North America from the
Yeah,
World Rankings,
from the
and I don't
rankings,
think
yeah.
Liquid can catch them. Like, I'm not 100%. Like, I'm
But
not
I mean,
a
like
fucking
we can
ranking
expect
guru.
Liquid to win this event, to be honest, and make that tournament through that spot at the IM Beijing if they just skip it, because they're going to be by far the best team there. So I think it's fair to assume that Liquid are going to take this spot, and then the only North American spot that's going to be left is essentially like reserved for EG because nobody else even comes close.
Isn't there only 2 North American spots? One of them has already been given to Furia when they won
I guess.
New York, and the other one is ranking based. So it's either going to be Evil
No, there's
Geniuses.
Beijing. This Beijing tournament has one too.
Does it?
Yeah,
Really?
that's what our site says. I imagine it's right. I don't see why it wouldn't be.
That's not what I've been selling on the broadcast. Have I been fucking out that badly?
Beijing,
Maybe.
yeah, Beijing has one spot, and then you have Beijing Europe, Beijing NA, and then you have World Ranking Europe 1 and 2,
So
World
there's
Ranking
3
NA,
teams from North
and
America.
CS.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like almost impossible. It's not like Furia, EG, and Liquids.
Yeah, pretty much.
Impossible. Yeah. So in
What
that
the
case,
hell?
EG
I only
should
thought
probably
there was
just
2
stick
teams
around.
from North America. Yeah,
There you
just
go.
stick around. They don't need to go anywhere.
I agree
surely
with that for sure.
changed. The fuck?
It fucks over Liquid though if they can't really travel over, but I feel like they can still travel through Serbia. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I feel like everybody can go there.
Just fucking message my people and see if this has changed, because I swear to God there was only 2 slots.
Maybe it's
Like-
changed with this recent movement, but I feel like it hasn't.
Either way, it doesn't really matter. So yeah,
EG
don't-
did get, like, they didn't do much. Like, they had one good map against an IP that they lost, and they also beat EG on one OG on one map,
yeah,
right?
they took-
Yeah.
They had a good Inferno. They were like B CT side. Inferno is pretty good with Tarek and Ethan, and Ethan was playing well. Breezy was kind of not playing well.
Breezy was also same as Electronic, was really didn't show up the entire group. I feel like he didn't even one series above like 1.0 rating, and obviously we expect much more from Breezy.
for sure. Like in terms of the EG, like I watch their games, but I don't know how the best way to quantify it for people is. Like I can't even think of like a way that I could relate it to like even any fun kind of gimmick. It's just like you're playing a version of Counter-Strike where everything's a little bit easier. Like you heard me list those other teams who are in Beijing. It's like
This calls for the classic checkers and chess comparison.
Sure. Well, I don't know if it's that stark of a contrast.
know,
like you
I know.
still, but the thing is, it's more like the mistakes that you can get away with, like in North America, you can't get away with them in Europe because people are just going to kill you. Like they're not going to miss the shot. Whereas in like you might get away with an overpeak or a repeak that you'd normally win just because you're better. But in Europe, everyone's just as good as you. Like that's just the way it's going to be. So there is always an adjustment period. And before you go, oh, they were playing events in Europe and then back to but that's because the circuit was constantly running and they were constantly playing against the meta and better players. They've literally just had 6 months where like the best scrims that they could find were against Liquid, who just added a coach and a new player, Furia, who I'm sure must be the hardest team in the world to play against in scrims because they're just running around everywhere. 100 Thieves, and who else am I forgetting? Genji,
MIBR, right?
Yeah, it might be out too. Genji in the mix. So like your practices, you could practice what 5, maybe 6 teams that you would give any merit to. So it's like you can't establish anything new. You're gonna get lazy. Zeus probably did the best job he could with what they had, but it's just going to be an adjustment period. I think we spoke about this earlier in the year on the show, actually.
Yeah, it was the DAPS episode. If someone wants to go back and watch, where he talked about like what the issues are going to be if this goes on for a longer period of time, which of course
It has.
Not to mention also the fact that some of those teams are competing against each other in events. So there's practice plus events that are playing against each other. And then some of those teams, I know for a fact that they try to not practice against each other when it doesn't make sense and they're about to play an official in 2-3 days. So
which is all the time.
So when you actually think about it, like groups with 4 teams on each group, and then suddenly you can scrim 3 of those teams, and then let's say we end up in a group with Liquid, MIBR, and then Furia, and then fuck, you just end up having to scrim against like Chaos, and then you basically have to book maps against them for every single day, and then end up repeating the same map. I'm really worried about just NA in general. I think, as you said, Chad, I think Zeus probably did a really good job on like trying to keep them in check and still competing and all of that. But I'm really concerned about the amount of practice and motivation that those players have while they're competing in NA. Like, who knows what kind of schedule they had? If they're actually playing like 4 or 5 matches per day, or if it just came down to a point they're just like, you know what, like we're playing the same team over and over again, like whatever, let's just play individually and make sure we are on point, kind of thing.
Play some Valorant on the side, mate. That's what's going on. All right, let's keep it moving because we could get stuck into North American Counter-Strike all day if we wanted, but we need to talk about this. We have to talk about this. It's bloody crazy that they're doing it. So if you guys missed it, this was from Group B in Blast. And Vitality, the fucking madmen, they pulled it off. They managed to be the first team, and probably will be the only team for some time, who are actually doing this whole 6-man roster. They announced it. They got Navira there. We saw him sitting behind RPK. We thought, this was like a father-son situation going on. But what they've done is, because Blast within the rules for their event, allow you to make substitutions between maps. So Navera is playing Dust 2 for Masuta, and what we learnt just the other day when they beat Big, I think it was, that
Inferno.
Yeah, Navera's also playing for JaCkz's position on the team. So they are legitimately doing this now. Whether or not Vitality are probably the best team to do this with the style of Counter-Strike that they have. But whether or not this is a thing for the future, or maybe they're just seeing how good Navera is, or we don't know really how this is going to pan on out. But what were your initial takes when you saw this, Prof? Like, were you like, this is madness, or this is what would you think?
Like the first map I saw was the Dust 2 that they lost, I think, but Nivera top fragged. But top fragged in like a non-impact way. Like
Yeah.
he was getting kills. From one perspective, my perspective was okay. This guy can frag, which is good. So that's like a good like just a good marker for them. Okay, this guy can hold his own, even though his kills weren't impactful. It's not his fault that everyone else died and he just had like stupid duels that didn't mean anything, right? So that was like okay. And then the more he was playing, it seemed like better and better. And then every time Misuta came back in, Misuta played better. Like this was like the tied best event for Misuta in his career with Vitality, 106 rating. Not insane, but again, his role not going to be like super flashy, not going to take the op like Nivera did quite a bit actually. So yeah, I was like, okay, what the fuck? This is actually working. I hate it. It's working, you know? That's the thing.
So I think we should pivot to you now, Peacemaker. Obviously, being a coach of a team. Now, in recent times, you've had a lot of issues with rosters, but let's say that you had a stable roster and things were going pretty well. Is this something that you would ever consider for your team? And then second of all, is this something that you think is going to be the norm, or it's just a special case with a team like Vitality who plays pretty high variance Counter-Strike?
I mean, first I was very surprised. I didn't really, not gonna lie to you guys, I haven't really watched those games that
Sure.
much. I've seen some highlights and stuff like that on HLTV, but like, if this is gonna be a thing where they do it like on those maps specifically, like Nivera on Dust 2, he's gonna play instead of Misuta, and then they're gonna practice like that, and then, I mean, for practice-wise, I feel like they could even build a schedule where, you know, like that could even be helpful for some of those players. Like, let's say JaCkz is feeling a little bit burned out, and then they build a schedule around, hey, today we're gonna practice only Dust 2 and Vertigo, and those are the maps that you don't really need to be there. So why don't you just take a day off, chill, and then you come back the next day? So that could be refreshing. I can see that working in that aspect, and that's pretty good for the players. But like then you would need like this guy to do multiple roles and stuff like that. So that could work if you had like a 10-man roster that you could keep switching around. But if they do that on specific maps and it's always the same substitute and they practice like that, then I don't see a big issue. And when it comes down, if I would do that, like I would do probably what they did in terms of like building a foundation and having a map pool and becoming a top team and all of that. And then when I get there, and then if I see an issue, let's say I could have the opportunity to have an opportunity to play 7 maps, right? So I want to play 7 maps, but for some reason I have this guy on my team who really feels uncomfortable on Dust 2 or Inferno, and then I can pick up a player who feels really comfortable. Maybe he could even be like the second voice in the team because he's simply really good on the map. Then maybe I could see some use of that in order to have a 7 map pool, and then I can play all 7 maps, and then when we have to play that map, then we use the 6th guy or something like that. But in the long run, I feel like it's so hard to have 5 players on the same page in CSGO that making a 6-man roster work is very, very challenging in the long run. Like short term it might look great, but in the long run there's also egos, right? Like that develops maybe you're not playing, and then suddenly like there is personality clashing in the team, chemistry and all of that. I feel like it's pretty hard. I also don't know like when things goes back to normal on LAN, how that would even be a thing. Like you have 5 minutes between maps to go drink some water and smoke a cigarette, and then you have to do a substitute in the middle of that. So that's very, very challenging.
I think
Blast said something like they had like 10 minutes where you had to set up. If you didn't set up, you just play on what you have. But that wouldn't ever work like that. You don't force people to play on a not set up PC like that. That's just like a technical issue, right? So I don't know how that would work, but other than that, just
But this is where we come into problems, right? Because obviously, I know we're fucking in this issue we're in right now, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. But with the major being postponed indefinitely, let's assume that let's just say, for argument's sake, in the 3rd quarter of next year, it's like, okay, we're back. We've all weared our masks, we've washed our hands, we've stayed indoors. There's a vaccine, or the world's realized that we just have to get on with it. Whatever the fuck happens, right? We're back and the major is going to be on. Like, this is going to be an issue for some team, Striker, right? Because if you've only played for the last 9 months or whatever with Nivera on Dust 2, and then Masuda gets thrown in because you want to use him in more maps of the major, like how do you even work around that? Because Valve,
Well,
they're not going to fuck with those
essentially you
rules.
don't. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think Valve will ever make that possible. At least, yeah, I don't see Valve making that possible just with the stance that they've taken surrounding, you know, an extended roster and coaches, you know, not having as much of a say. So I feel like this will just not work at the majors. So the teams just have to take that into consideration and have to make concessions around it, because otherwise, yeah.
Look, I want to go around the room here like we did before. Now, this question, I think that the 6 or 7 or 8 or 12 or however many fucking players you think that you're going to put on your roster these days, I think that it is merely a symptom of the situation we're in right now with online Counter-Strike, because we're not stupid. Everybody watching this right now and everybody partaking in this right now and everybody who watches it in the future is well aware that since we've come back from the player break, there has literally been a tournament non-stop. It has just been non-stop fucking Counter-Strike. And I know that Apex is an example of one of the players who we're talking about from Vitality. He's been vocal about the burnout and the amount of matches. Now, unfortunately, this is a sidebar. We'll come back to the other point. Unfortunately for him, he's probably not going to actually get a day off because he's the in-game leader of the fucking team. So for him, this kind of probably doesn't help him at all. Now, coming back to the main point, we'll quickly, before I digress too far, with this whole situation that we have going, I personally think that this is a symptom of online Counter-Strike and COVID scenario that we're in right now. I think once things return to normal and teams start being more selective and don't fucking put themselves from event to event or flying from Malmo to New York or New York to Malmo and then China and then back from China and then China again. Like once teams start being sensible about their schedules and stuff, I think we'll just return back to the 5-man roster with maybe a 6th guy on the bench who's also a streamer, and occasionally he can step in if somebody, I don't know, fucking breaks a toe or some shit. Now, I want to go around the room. Do we think, Prof, that this is a symptom of online, or do you think this is the future of Counter-Strike?
Difficult to say.
There can be another answer.
I mean, maybe somewhere in between, like as you said. I think it is something that is here to stay, but not in like in a way maybe that anyone is doing it right now. As like even Vitality's coach did like a decent tweet longer that you can read, like translated on HLTV as well. He did say, we don't know what's going to happen with this. We're just trying shit. This is essentially what he said.
Yeah.
I think that is what everyone's doing. Everyone's doing something different. Some will say Astralis never had a 6-man roster or a 7-man roster ever. It was just like a farce. Maybe it was. Vitality are trying to do this like mid-series swapping for specific maps. G2 are trying to do their thing. Cloud9 is going to try to have like something like you described from what Henry said, right? Someone like a streamer, older guy to sit around. I think it is going to be sticking around, but I'm not sure in what actual form it is going to be.
Okay. JaCkz, what do you reckon?
I think, I mean, from what you just listed there, every single team is approaching this in some different way.
Yes.
Astralis essentially used it as a replacement. Like let's not lie about that. It's just the way that they've always only had the amount of players that they needed, because 2 were out, so they needed to add 2 players. Now one of them is out. Essentially, the only time when they realistically had an extended roster as well now, I guess you can say, just because bubzkji is still on the team essentially. And in what was the tournament, Cologne, right, where they used the bubzkji in the first game, but then since then they always played with as a tag, right? So I feel like that's the only period in Astralis where you can actually say that they had some sort of an extended roster where they could choose between who plays. But now that we have ZipX back and we have actually the original 5, we're going to have to see whether bubzkji ever gets to play, because that's obviously a question that we're all asking when it comes to Astralis and their situation, because I don't think he will ever play unless there's like an actual problem with the original 5.
Yeah.
One of them not being able to play for some reason. So, and then you have Vitality, who are obviously doing this, and I think, I don't know whether I agree with that it's a symptom, just because with Vitality they're still using all of their players like in full capacity essentially. Like the other player who's out of the team is still like watching the team play and waiting to potentially start back in. I'm sure they're still all part of the practice and trying to figure out who's going to play which map and stuff like that. So I don't think anybody's getting time off in Vitality, while in Astralis it was obviously different. Then there's G2, who's essentially just trying to figure out, okay, which player do we keep, and they just want to do trial and error and then figure out which one is actually better. And who else is there? I guess that's pretty much the main parts now.
But I need you to
So-
land somewhere for me, mate. I need you to pick. Just get your little crystal
I'm
ball out.
trying to. This was leading somewhere, and now I forgot where.
Oh, I've
it
derailed
was
you.
leading. Yeah, exactly. But I essentially think that it is just people, doing stuff. I don't want to say out of boredom, but just like being able to, and not, having to travel to events and needing to have good results. Because this is the time to try stuff, whatever you want to do,
Yeah.
especially if you're a team that's kind of safe at the top level, where you're not really afraid of, dropping out of like the top 20, not getting invites and stuff like that. These are teams who are consistently going to be able to play at the biggest events, no matter what they do. Like they're still going to be a good team, whether they try this stuff or not. So for them, it's just kind of like a safe way to try things out, see if like this is something that they can explore for the future, especially like when we look at Vitality. So I do think that it's going to go away kind of once we get back to like a normal situation. And until then, people are just going to try stuff out.
All right. So back to normal eventually.
Pretty much.
All right. Peacemaker, what do you got?
I think I agree with both Striker and Prof. Like, I think it's kind of like people are just trying different things right now. So I think for the future, one thing that I could see happening, it's like we all know that the organizations can't have like academy teams. So what could end up happening is that they get these new upcoming talents and they kind of like fit him into the original, like with the main roster, and kind of like teach him the ways and kind of like prepare him to in the future be a potential substitute. The challenge with that is, let's say you keep this guy for 6 months, and then after 6 months, the guy has been every practice, and here and there he plays, and he's doing a good job, blah, blah, blah. But then in 6 months, the team just feels, let's say in 6 months, the team actually feels like he could be a good opportunity, but in the market, there's that hot guy that is really, really willing to come, and they're just like, fuck, man, should we try to do it with this new guy that has been with us for 6 months, or should we get a guy like NiKo to a roster who we know he's gonna deliver? And then let's say you bring NiKo on board, and then that guy has been sitting practicing with you for 6 months, and when he finally has the opportunity to join, then someone else comes. So that could be very challenging to manage those things. But I think for the future, I can see more teams going for that approach of like either using a 6th man, as you said, Shad, like a streamer, someone who can come in and play whenever needed, or a young upcoming talent that eventually, like, look, the orgs doesn't really lose much by doing it. Like, they will pay this guy a certain amount of money if he develops and show any kind of a good level when he plays. Then who knows? Maybe they offer him a contract and they actually don't even need to pay a buyout, and then suddenly they sell him for millions. And then like it's
Look at
funded out of it.
Astralis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially what
exactly.
that's the tag.
So there's no losing on that, besides like obviously the players and the coach needs to be open to that. But I can see a lot of orgs going for that approach because there's a lot of upsides about it. So yeah, I think this is something, to answer your question, I think it's something that's going to stick around, not
Sure.
only a symptom of the online era.
I
All
think
right.
he hit a really important point with kind of the economic side of this, where you just don't. This is a way where you just don't, where you ensure that the future of the team stays intact, where you know when you have to get a player, you can get one just because you have one on the sidelines.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay for him. Like, you've kind of brought him up in your team, kind of on the sidelines, and he can just take a spot later at some point whenever you
That would
need
be
to.
a lot easier, right? So, like, the
Yeah,
guy
for
knows all the strats, all the system, everything, and just, hey, come on board, like, we need you. And then, yeah.
Well, the
It also
BMS
helps. Yeah, the BMA situation is one of them. But let's say even for Mad Lions, if they had someone that could come in when they had to buy Innocent, right? If they had someone that's like a decent Danish player that can step in, that would allow them also just to have a stand-in for one tournament, but also allow them to, like, when they're trying to buy out someone else, the negotiations would be easier. This way,
Sure,
like,
they
everyone
can't
knows you
leverage
need
it.
a player,
Yeah.
right? And then.
100%.
So from that perspective, I think it's a good way good way. It's a way in which orgs can actually leverage the players into money, right?
Yeah.
They use a player to build them up, like they did with Esatag. We knew he was a good player, but now he was in Astralis, did really well. His worth, I think Cloud9 still overpaid him, but even if they sold him for like half of that, it would still be a massive gain, right? For such a short amount of time, for a free signing, for paying like a couple of salaries, like, I don't know how many, 3-4 months. That's a massive gain for the org.
But AC Tag also brings a lot of experience and a lot of things that he learned with Astralis. So it's not only a good deal in that sense, but together with AC Tag and the performance comes a guy with that knows how the system worked in Astralis and maybe can come with the ideas for Cloud9 and all that. So I think that was a really good signing actually.
I think that's also kind of a dangerous way to approach this as well, just to like, what is it called? Share company secrets, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, you bring up a player like an Tag, you know, you show him the way, you give him the stamp, you know, a stamp of approval, Astralis, like everything like that. And now he knows everything that you've done as a team. Now he knows all the processes that you go through, and he can bring that to another team. So I feel like there's also a dangerous aspect to this where if you want to do this as a business decision, there's definitely a drawback.
What's it called in like tech industries and stuff? Fuck.
I know. That's exactly the word that I was looking for.
Corporate espionage or some shit like that.
Yeah, corporate espionage. That's it.
No, there's like clauses. There's clauses in contracts, right? Like if you leave like a tech company, like you can't. It's fuck.
No, I know what else you mean.
Like industry, I don't know. But anyway, we're idiots. We won't talk about that shit.
I was looking for the same word.
There's some very good points there that we brought up. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops in the future, but we'll keep this one moving. We're going to talk about Group C, which hasn't started just yet because there is a Steam network issue at the moment. People aren't able to get on into the game. So
they can chill for us, I guess.
Works out perfectly. So we're going to quickly dive into this, and then we'll go into playtime because we have to play another ad. And we want to ask peacemaker some. It's mainly because we want to play another ad, guys. That's why we're going to skip the IEM Beijing stuff because we don't have time.
Yeah, that was a placeholder anyway.
Group C, we got this coming up. MIBR, new roster. They got Lukas, they got VSM, and they got Leo Drunky, who have joined with TRK and kNgV. And we had Smoo on last week, who was talking about the fact that he thinks that TRK, you know, hasn't shown his full potential yet. We know that VSM is a good player, but he's VAC banned. That's why he probably hasn't played at this level up until now. And then you've got Lukas, obviously quite a tenured player, was with Immortals when they made it to the grand final against Gambit in 2017. G2, we're about to see the roster changes going on there. Fury, we want to see how they go up against on European soil, and obviously Astralis. Now that is Group C. I think we should start with Peacemaker and MIBR. The pickups here, Peacemaker. Are they names that I know that you're obviously now so much more familiar with European Counter-Strike, but you might have conversations with people back at home. Do any of these names stand out to you that they picked up?
Yeah, actually the VSM, I heard a lot of good things about him. He not only that, but I do follow some games sometimes like Brazilian games and stuff, and VSM is very, very talented. Many people in Brazil say he was the next CodeZera. After for a long time actually, and then unfortunately this VAC ban thing definitely affected his career. I think if it wasn't for the VAC thing, he would have got an opportunity in, who knows, even MIBR, to be honest. Like, I could see VSM being picked up before the Mayon guy, the Argentinian guy back then, like for sure. And I think that VSM is very talented. Like, I'm really excited to see if he can put up some good performance against the high-level competition that he's gonna face these next days. But I think it's very, very challenging. Like the Leo Drunky guy, I don't know him that well. I think that that's the player that I'm most curious about, if he's gonna be able to perform. I know Lukas, and Lukas is kind of inconsistent in terms of performance, but he's a very nice guy to have in the team because he's a really funny guy and he set up the mood really well and chemistry and all of that. And I don't know, Lukas is just a bit inconsistent. Sometimes he delivers, sometimes he's kind of off. And yeah, and then kNgV and TRK, they are the ones that stayed in the roster. And I'm just really, I don't know, like this group seems like very unrealistic that they are able to do anything. Yeah. Unfortunately, like if it was maybe in a group like Group A, where we would face like EG, like a home game, and then maybe the likes of OG and Navi online, then I could see them maybe upsetting. But in this group, I feel like it's a very, 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 very hard challenge.
There's still some question marks in this. Just every single team is kind of like has some kind of a question mark around them. So
yeah,
I feel like this. It's obviously a hard group. Like Astralis, Fury, and G2 are just going to be very hard teams to get past if you go top 2. But it's still not unfeasible that they do some damage essentially.
So I want to do it this way here. So what What key markers, Striker, do you think? Because I think we all are in agreement that it's unlikely MIBR even win that it's very unlikely MIBR win a series. It's also quite unlikely to see MIBR win a map, right? And a lot of people are going to hear me say that and go, "That's fucking ridiculous." Well, it's not when you consider the caliber of opponent.
No.
But if we wanted to set markers to go, oh, okay, well, there is potential here, or there is a chance that this could grow into something. What, like, if you had to pick 2 or 3 things, what would they be that you need to see going right or need to be looking like they're heading in the right direction to have any stock in what MIBR are doing here?
Well, I mean, VSM has to be a star. That's one of them.
Okay.
For sure. He has to be as good as people think he is.
Okay.
He's going to have to replicate it against the best teams, which is obviously also a question mark. We haven't really seen him go up against the best teams in the world. So I know he had some tournament with Daytona where he was at a good tournament, but I don't remember what it was. But obviously very inexperienced at this level.
Must be.
What, sorry?
Must be Pro League.
Pro League, yeah. Must be some Pro League in the past that I know he played. But that's pretty much it, right? So that's definitely one of those question marks that I need to be answered. Secondly, I feel like they just need to be unpredictable as fuck, which they are going to be. Nobody has any idea how they're going to play. So that's second factor. And third factor, it probably has to be kNgV on the op. Then him coming back to like a form that we kind of expected him to have in MIBR in the first place. And obviously there were a lot of problems with roles between him and Fallen, him not getting as much freedom as he would potentially like to. And now that not only is he the in-game leader, which he already had been in MIBR before they made all these changes, now he has literally zero influence from all the old guard. So I think those 3 are the biggest things.
Okay. Yeah,
I would like to add one thing. Like it's not leaking anything, but we had one map of practice against them, which obviously I don't want to say which map was it,
Sure.
but I think that they surprised me positively. Like for the short period of time that they are in Europe, I could definitely see that they had a style that they wanted to play, which actually is not very aligned to European CS. But I could definitely see that they had something. The result was pretty close, and they just surprised me on how fast they developed. The VSM guy was playing pretty good. Then who knows? But you guys might call me stupid, but I actually think that in this group, if there is a team that they could potentially surprise and catch off guard, would be G2. Simply because of the fact that they have a new guy in the roster. And I don't know if they are necessarily 100% comfortable yet with the roles and how NiKo is going to play and all of that. And so, like, G2 could be the type of team that if they have a good game plan, if they're hitting their shots, and they play very loose in the style that the Brazilians likes to play, then I could see them upsetting G2 on a map. Who knows, even in a series, but I think it's way more realistic, like on a map where they have practiced a lot, like, hey, we're going to play G2, so we should focus a lot on this map because that's the map that we think we can beat them, kind of thing.
All right. That map wouldn't be Vertigo by any chance, would it?
I was going to say just 2.
Vertigo is the first map that they picked against Astralis. So I was just having a look at the video right here that they have going on.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's Vertigo, Nuke, and then Inferno was the third.
But that also kind of makes sense for like a G2 pick as well.
Yeah.
Because G2 play it, and I think Landers tweeted like NiKo's stats on Vertigo are awful. Like awful for his standards, like 0.92 or something.
Sure.
So that could be a map that they're gonna, like, G2 is gonna have issues getting done so quickly, right? Getting in line.
We're going to jump around a bit quickly here, and then we're going to run to this playtime. Just on, let's live in the scenario that Peacemaker just created their prof for a second, and let's say that G2 do lose a map or a series to MIBR. In terms of the blunders that G2 have suffered over the last year and a bit,
not even like top 10, man. That is not even top.
You wouldn't put that top 10?
No, I don't think so. Unless it's one of those like complete blowouts.
Yeah.
Like a 16-2, 16-5. Like they already lost to MIBR when Zeus was playing this year. That was last year. That was Chicago last year. But it was like the French G2 lineup when they were almost falling apart at that time. So they had so many. Okay. They had the coach at Summit, the bomb defusal. Other bomb defusal with Kenny S on Dust 2 as well.
Yeah.
When he went for the op, then literally had the meme about recorded like a month before. So I'm not sure. Maybe it fits like low top 10, but I'm not even sure.
Low top
Yeah, but
10.
it's not losing to mouz sports with a stand-in and a coach, you know, type of deal.
All right. Well, I think that gives the level of expectation for that one there. The last one I quickly want to touch on has to be Furia's adjustment. Striker, do you think it's going to be a little bit like getting slapped in the face with a big wet fish if they can't get away with their aggression? Do you think that's them fucked?
I think I feel like there's going to be something on their part, but I feel like they're the kind of a team that people need to adjust to rather than them adjusting to the region that they're going to play. And I feel like it's entirely up to the European teams to kind of like get used to them playing against the Furia style, because it is an entirely new thing, or not a new thing, but it's definitely not a play style that you will encounter in Europe at all. So it's just something that definitely is not the same as with EG, where people kind of know what they're getting, and because it's a style that obviously makes quite a lot of sense. They don't really they play like around their individuals, but they don't take like massive risks. They don't have like an archetype that is going to do crazy stuff around the map. So I feel like it's going to be more of the pressure is going to be more on the other side than on Furia.
All right, let's keep it with you, Striker. Who do you think is going to top this group?
I mean, you have to go with Astralis, I think.
All right, Peacemaker.
I feel like, yeah.
I feel like Astralis as well. Yeah.
Astralis, Prof.
Furia.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to go with Furia as well. Now, we're going to leave Blast conversation. We're quickly going to go playtime here. I'm sure we have some questions. Lukas, play it. All right, we're back. You guys watched another ad. I hope you're indoctrinated, and when you go to sleep at night this evening, when you close your eyes, all you see is Extrafy. And if you don't, then you now need to watch more. Next week, we'll put more ads in. I only want positive feedback about the ads. If we get any negative feedback, there will be more ads. The whole show will be ads. Anyway, Prof, ask the questions.
Yeah, there's a question. blameF asks, are A executes allowed? That's just the question. I don't know what it's about, but it seems like there's some funny story behind it.
Oh yeah, there is. All right, so let me tell you the story. No, it was basically like we are in what was it? It was Pro League group stages in London, and then we were about to play Navi, and then we had a gameplay for every single map, and then when it came down to Mirage, then me and Blame prepared a lot, and then the only thing that I told blameF in that day was like, hey Blame, like the only thing that I suggest we don't do is to A execute against them, because they play really heavy towards connection and A and all of that. And then during the game, I remember that there was a round towards the end of the game where he called the A execution. And then I was like, oh no, fuck no, not this. And then I don't remember exactly now. I think we ended up winning the round. Oh, actually, we ended up losing the round, but it wasn't because they had an A stack or anything. Like, it was whatever. Like, it was a fine read from him. But after the game, I got really, really mad. And then, like, there is this video footage from Heroic with me just saying, like, we're outside, and I'm just like, Blame, don't A execute. The only thing I told you not to do is don't fucking A execute, blah blah. And this fucking giant guy, like, I'm just like furious on him. He's like, oh, sorry. But yeah, it was just a funny story with Blame. But yeah, that's why he keeps trolling about it. Like, don't A execute. This A executes a lot and stuff.
that was when you actually beat Navi at Pro League, and then they kicked Edward after that.
Yeah, we beat them in the end. Like, we on a very tight series on Overpass, which actually. After that, I was kind of like, I definitely regret the way I spoke with blameF. It was just like in the heat of the moment, just like, why did you call it execution? Bye-bye. And then on Overpass, after all that happened, I was like, fuck, I shouldn't have talked to him like that. But surprisingly, Blame is just a strong guy. And like, he just went on Overpass, and he was calling even better, and he was putting up even a better performance. So, Christ, the guy.
There's a question from Vitinho asking, Peacemaker thoughts on coaching a Brazilian team in the future? What's the situation with that?
Definitely something that I would love to do again. I'm not gonna lie, like I don't know how realistic is that. Basically, I can tell you guys that nobody from MIBR reached out to me during this period of shuffles and stuff like that. Like, so apparently they had in mind to actually try with Kogu at least for the short period of time and see how it goes, which I respect, whatever. But like in the future, definitely something that I would like to do before, like let's say I end my career or whatever. Like I would definitely consider a lot coaching a Brazilian project. Who know, like obviously I'm not gonna like when I started. Like I always looked up into Fallen, Coldzera, and Fair, and those guys. So if definitely if I had an opportunity to coach a team with Fallen and those guys, I would definitely consider it.
Okay. Oh, all right. That's a curious little tidbit right there. I want to quickly with the MIBR thing. I think I touched on it last week, and I wouldn't mind getting your opinion on this. I think like and I want to make sure I state this very clearly. This is no disrespect to Kogu whatsoever because he's an absolute legend of the game. But obviously he's been out for some time now. I think that picking up Kogu as the manager / coach was one of the only moves that MIBR / Immortals / Lurpus could have made to save face for their organization, right? Because you lost all of the legends of the team who were the whole reason you fucking branded the team MIBR in the first place. Now you bring back one of the absolute best to ever do it who wore that tag for many years, right? That for the Brazilian people must be a pretty big deal, right, Peacemaker?
Yeah, it's really nice, and many people don't know, but like I haven't really worked with Kogu, but I know a lot of people that did. And the thing about Kogu back in the days is that he's a very, very hard worker. Even back in the days, like he's the guy that was pushing the team and being the leader and all of that. He was IGLing as well back in the days in 1.6, as far as I know. So he's a guy that has really high expectations out of his teammates. Always did. Very passionate about the game. So if there is one thing that I think Kogu will make sure to deliver is making sure that the players are working hard and following their tasks and not going around to like do stupid shit on social media and all that kind of stuff. I feel like Kogu can do a really good job in terms of managing the personalities, which in that team is very, very challenging. Like they have very strong personalities in that team, people with the who likes to be outspeaking and all of that. So I think if he managed to do a really good job there, not necessarily in terms of coaching and bringing a lot of stuff to the table, because I feel like if he enters that area without experience and actually try to convince them that this is the way they should play and stuff like that, I feel like he needs a lot more time to get used to the meta, to see how teams are played before he actually tries to contribute too much in the game.
Okay.
That's my take.
Nice. We got any more questions, Prof?
No, I think we covered more or less everything that was asked during the show. So
Okay.
unless you guys have anything to add, I think
No.
we can.
I want to do what we always we always do. What I've been doing more recently, Peacemaker, I've been opening up the floor. Is there's anything that you want to talk about, anything you want to say, or if there's like someone out there who you keep seeing in your mean tweets and you want to call them a cunt, like anything like that, this is the time.
No, not really, guys. Just want to thank for the opportunity. Like it's been, I've been watching the show sometimes, and obviously when I had the opportunity happen, I was really happy with it. So just thanks for the opportunity, and I hope we can hang out some more time again in the future. And yeah, just thanks for the people who stick with us in Mad Lions and who still believes in the project. I know we haven't delivered what we wanted, as well, but we already talked about it in the show, so go back and watch it. But yeah, looking forward to the future. I think the roster has a lot of potential, so we'll see how it goes. Now we have 3 events to participate with against the good teams, and I'm really looking forward to see what we can deliver. So yeah,
Nice.
thanks
Okay.
everyone.
That's perfect. Now, Lucas, are we running the rerun tonight at 8?
Yes.
He
Good.
just
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Luke?
yes.
Just-
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So if you want to catch that, if you've just tuned in and you've missed Peacemaker talking about Mad Lions, which was the majority of the first, I think it was like 40 minutes of the show, and you guys want to watch the rerun, there'll be a rerun tonight on twitch.tv/HLTV.org, which is where you are already. That'll be on tonight at 8 p.m. Or 2000 CET. There's no more daylight savings at the moment. I think I'm right there. Or if you want to catch any of this stuff audio-wise, go over to anchor.fm/HLTV. That's all of the options there. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Peacemaker for being here on the show. And obviously, you guys have seen that we're now sponsored by EXTREFI. So there'll be a couple of ads here and there. Hopefully, it doesn't cause you too much grief and you still get all the lovely action that you want. Now, we already have our guest for next week locked in. Monday the 9th of November. We have a guest locked in for then, same time. It's going to be the 3 p.m. slot. And then the week after that, we maybe have a different day. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that. But keep tuning on in and thank you for joining us. And that's going to be it. Wear your fucking masks.